it's Shaves, and welcome to another edition of AniTube Digest, where we go over the best and not so best anime YouTube videos to come out this month of November 2022. We're going to start with a video from Lowart. He's been doing a video every day, pretty much, for a whole month. Me and Maffa, but he's calling it something different, of course. But congrats. I think he's almost done. It seems that he's uploaded every single day. I don't think he's missed one. He may have done like 2 in one day and whatever, but like very, very active this month. I'm a bit rusty. You know, when you do digest for only a month, then that's just what happens. But I wanted to, out of the videos I checked out from him, it wasn't really a ton of them because it's like a lot of different stuff, video games, Western cartoons, you know, etc. Of course, the one that's going to catch my eye is the extremely obscure anime title from the 70s, A Journey Through Anime Weirdness. He's talking about Belladonna of Sadness. Very happy to see anyone talk about this movie because it's a wonderful, wonderful movie. Which is the way he handles it is very like tactful and like dancing around the actual subject matter and not showing anything remotely sexual or whatever, which fine and makes sense. I'm not like be like, oh, I'm not like upset or whatever. Just it's an observation, I guess. But apparently like uploaded this at some point earlier or like had a different title or something, and he got a bunch of weird bots or something. I was like, that's bizarre. I didn't have that when I uploaded my Belladonna AMV, but again, may have been just based on the title or something. I don't know. That's interesting. But otherwise, you know, it's not too much to say with it 4 minutes and everything. But that's okay. I like hearing from him and his stuff, especially just him not complaining about things. I like him talking about in the way he refers to this movie about like it says he just kind of gets in your head and like it makes you kind of feel like you want to talk about it. At least for me, I think the creator's brain, this is the kind of ideal movie for that. This and like Shoujo Tsubaki, I think, is another one where if you watch that movie, I feel like it's very likely you'll want to come away with talking about it in some regard. Maybe unless you absolutely hate it, unless you don't like it, and then you'll probably want to try to forget about it or something. But and maybe that's the case with this movie too. But I know only a few detractors, which it's fair if you don't like this movie. I get it. It's certainly a strange one, but man, God, sick. It's so cool. Anyway, I just wanted to say congrats with the amount of uploads and all the work you did. That's very impressive. Sorry I didn't get to check out all of it, but it is what it is. Yeah, really good stuff. The Escapist surprisingly coming out with an anime related thing. They're a games publication, again, you know, like they host Zero Punctuation basically and other videos. That's kind of what most people go for. You see it in their views as well, like the videos and stuff. That's what I'm subscribed to them for, at least. And so I was surprised to see they have this show Weeb Shit. They had a whole intro for it and everything. And I'm like, is this the first time you're doing this? The first time talking about anime? I think it is. At least for it's in like at least 6 months when I was scrolling through all their videos. I can't find anything similar. Maybe if I did the search feature or something. But it seems like this is a new segment for them. And I liked the structure of this being a bunch of different writers and pitching their own kind of contributions. It kind of reminded me of anime news networks like Best and Worst of the Season, where they ask all of their writers and they each come up with their like best and worst, you know, and they have like certain runner-ups and whatever, and you get people's different perspectives on things. But I like having that in a video format, where you're hearing different voices recording and giving their perspective on it, I guess. It really is kind of an entry-level video not in the picks. The actual selections are decent here. Morbido, Beck, gosh, it's been a little while since I watched it. Littlewood Check It. It was a fair variety too. Mostly newer stuff. There wasn't anything, I think, from before 2000s. I have to double check, actually. It's admittedly been a couple days since I watched it. They did have the Big O, which is basically the 90s. It's close. I think the second season may have been 2000. I'm not sure. But that is old. Yu-Gi-Oh is also fairly but like Saikano was in this. The Ultimate Weapon, like like wow, okay, yeah. And I felt like a lot of it read very much like a very blasé synopsis and recommendation, and like trying to just tell you what it's about. And this is like for very like surface level. I've never watched anime or something. I don't know how useful that is these days. That's just my personal opinion, I guess. It's obviously not useful to me. I've heard of all these shows. There's some that I certainly haven't been on my radar, like Saikano. So it's like those sorts of things I would want to hear more of. And it's a shame I'm looking at this and like they're time coded, so they're talking about Odd Taxi a lot, and then Saikano is like a shorter segment than everything else, which is unfortunate, you know. That's just a perspective I got. And but I did like now I'm scrolling back through it again and remembering some stuff. That when the person was talking about Little Witch Academia, I liked that they were able to kind of connect it to their personal experience. That was really nice. I like, this is like I'm trying to get myself a pub beat out there published and stuff. I'm not very good at it, and I'm doing my best and kind of relating that to Little Witch Academia. I thought that was neat, and that's the stuff I would have wanted more of. I think they get to know more about these particular writers. I don't think, when I'm scrolling through this again, I don't think they show who the authors are or like what their names are, what their pitches are, I guess. The first episode hosted by 3 guys. Oh, okay, so I know so little of them that I didn't even realize that it's not like every entry is a different writer. I kind of thought that's what I assumed, but I guess that wasn't the case. That's funny. Goes to show you, I had no idea. But I'm gonna mute this. Yeah, sorry, boss. I'll get to you in a sec. But yeah, like I was surprised and nice to see. I could take or leave the title, the call it weeb shit, and it's a poop with a anime face on it. Like, do we really have to, you guys? Could we think of anything else? Like, come on, it's mainstream now. I don't know. I guess I'm just overly sensitive to self-deprecating weeb humor, I guess, perhaps. But like, come on. I don't know, it's a little unflattering. But I like the list. I like the selections, Moribito, and you know, it was good stuff. I was like, okay, yeah. And again, I could take it. Yeah, I'm just repeating myself at this point. But yeah, interesting stuff. I enjoyed it. Okay, HitReg. This manga artist made a $20 trillion mistake. I really didn't like this video. I can't with fucking me, man. All right, so I didn't take any notes. I watched it once a couple of days ago, but I really can't bring myself to like watch it again and like really give specific, like, because it's trash. It's just I can't with this fucking. So like, he's really trying to be informative and like additive, and I really respect that. What he's trying to do here, what I can gather, it's really just the execution of this that I'm just like, ugh. What I gather what he's trying to do is give the backstory of Eiichiro Oda for the One Piece author, right? And he's trying to give his like context of writing One Piece and the turmoil and emotional turmoil. And he went through all these interviews and he went through all the history and like all the resources and sources that are out there. But of course he doesn't put any of them in there in the description for shit. Or he's showing like text that's like interviews of Oda, so you know that he's quoting something, and he's getting his friends to read these lines of of Oda. But I don't remember if it was different people. I think it was the same person representing different people in Oda's life and the certain things or whatever. There's dramatic reenactments. But like the way it's edited, and it's so no breathing room. It's so fast. He's literally like cutting the quotes off in the middle, like like fading them out, and it's like we have to get to the next thing. Like you can't even fathom what he's trying to do. And it is only like 2 minutes into the video where like, oh, I guess it's like a background of Oda's life. That, like, I couldn't even get the basics of that because of how this is edited. It's very flashy. I'm not going to say it's poorly edited in the conventional sense of like, oh, it's not exciting. Sure, it is pretty exciting, like flashy effects and stuff. And like people in the comments are obviously going to be like, wow, this is so well edited or whatever. And like, yeah, there's some really like, and there's some playful stuff here, right? There's this section where like, oh, he has his manga One Piece, and then there's a note is like, there's 100 volumes. I'm not animating all of that. I get there's a lot of effort and work being put into this. I've been there. I've made these. I'm kind of over the hill with these kinds of videos. I've realized about myself that like I might be too old for this. I don't know. But like, God, it's like you couldn't just give the whole quote. You couldn't just put the source in the description. You know, you couldn't just like explain what this title is, which is a play on his other video that he just put out. It's the same exact thumbnail too, but it's for Bleach. And obviously that video pops off. And so this video is going to pop off because it works. That's just how YouTube works. But like the $20 trillion mistake that I can guess, I have to guess what it is because you don't really know. And of course he's playing the YouTube thing where he's like, you're not going to get the answer to the title of the video until the very, very end, where if you don't get it, if it's not satisfactory, oh well, you watched my whole video anyway, it doesn't matter. You know, that's kind of what it felt like to me. And it's like, I did the exact same thing with my fucking with my Ninku video, where I was like, this is where he got the Naruto run. And I don't get to that until like the last 30 seconds of the video, which is like, sure. And that's what you do in YouTube, sure. But like, I couldn't get over $20 trillion mistake. Like, yeah, One Piece is a massive company, like a media empire at this point. I don't want to say company, I guess is really the word for it. It's a company of people that are working on it, you know? But like, the mistake I think he's trying to cite is the fact that like Oda has to like involve himself in the movies as of Strong World, and that's the mistake. Because he's like, he soaked up all his time, he can't do anything else. Like, I don't know what this, I didn't get what he was trying to say here. You know, I don't, it was, it like a speeding bullet train just like whizzes by you, and like, what the heck was that? It's like, did you like my video? It's like, huh? I couldn't with this, man. I really couldn't. And I would watch it again to like give a lot more specific and really like dissect it. I don't have the patience. I don't have the energy. I don't have the time. I'm sorry. I did not like this video. I was really put off by it. It would be a struggle to watch another video from this guy. Which I'm sorry about being super mean and everything like that. Sure. But like I was very put off, and it really like discouraged me. It's another thing is that like the fan service video I talked about a couple months ago, where I'm like, God, this is what does well, and what the fuck am I doing? You know, fuck. It is a modicum of jealousy for sure. It is. I have a problem with that, but like, God, it's not fair. This sucks, bro. This sucks. I mean, please, if somebody else watches this video and like I didn't think it was that bad, like, please. But like, if we could at least watch this video and see what I'm talking about, like the fact that it's another common thing of like, oh, he doesn't put anything in the description and doesn't source what he's talking about, but he has it on the screen, so I know it is probably a fair quote. I don't know where he's taking it from. Who knows if it could be taken out of context. The dramatic reenactment of like one of these meetings that Oda describes, that was a very pivotal point for him, was really cringe and over dramatic and like not necessary. You can get it from like, the value is there in the quote itself and his story. Like, talk about that, you know? really go into it, but like don't fucking make a theatrical thing out of it and like blow it up to more than what it is. God, I couldn't get into that. But it's just so fast, and there's a lot of good edits and stuff. Like it's impressive in that sense, but it's not serving the story. It's not serving the content, the meat, what you're watching the video for. It doesn't matter how flashy everything is and how much work you put into it if it's not serving something. If it's not serving something that's like really additive. I don't find this additive. One way or out the other, this whole thing. And it's just so disappointing. Not to I shouldn't go into it. Yeah, I'm not going to go into it. Didn't like the video. If I had categories these days, it would obviously be a not good. Please watch let me know if you can like further explain what because there's some people in comments that I know that have had really good insight and feedback on these videos that I talk about sometimes that I had problems with. I just need to hear about it because it's like what is this? Yeah. A separate recording. AnimeAjay actually uploaded a video for the first time in a long time. How long ago was this? A year. Yeah, over a year. And the last time we talked about it was will it be 100% CGI, the Dragon Ball Superhero? And then that movie came out like a while ago. Wow. But he's back to talk about the new Dragon Boxes. I don't know, call them Dragon Boxes. New Dragon Ball release from France that they used they actually got the upscale and the color correction correct for once. It's an actually good release, surprisingly, and he's like very little complaints, which he couldn't say the same for like a decade, if not 20 years for Dragon Ball. But it was just good to see him back, and I really like his polish. I like the background in the different music he chose, and it just feels like simple and quick, but like it doesn't feel like he lost any like major polish or anything. Yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to talk about it because it's obviously not a miracle, but it's sort of just like exciting to see AJ upload again. I think he's a great content creator. I think his like analysis of the actual material is impressive, and I also just really like that he shows so much of it, like the bunch of different examples. He goes into very fine minutia. It's a very studied topic, perhaps. I mean, I don't know if he's like the most studied of any, because this community is very big, of course, and this is a very nuanced and widely discussed topic. But of course, certainly out of the ones that have a platform on YouTube, he's probably the most knowledgeable about this subject. At least it comes across in this video. So, I mean, yeah, I'm just very impressed and really enjoy his perspective on this stuff, as well as just his presentation and everything. I think it's really, really smooth, really good. Wisecrack with another anime video. Did we misunderstand Totoro? And I'm like, oh, great. and I didn't get the best vibes from it at first, but I like the angle they're coming from, because it's not some like kind of crackpot reading so much. There's some parallels for sure, but they're really taking off the idea that this was a double feature. These two films, Totoro and Grave of the Fireflies, were made in tandem and were released as a double billing, and they go into like the process of double billing as curation, as like a means of analysis and watching. There's particular purpose and practice to doing that sort of thing. But I was waiting for like them to not source almost any like quotes or anything about the production history of these two movies. I don't know how extensive it is for these two, to be honest. There's other movies that have a lot, like Princess Mononoke, I think, has a whole documentary on it. But and Wind Rises as well. But I'm not sure how extensive, but I'm sure it's been researched a lot. I'm sure there's some stuff. It's Ghibli, right? But that's not sort of a big deal, because I think they're reading into it being a lot more practical and everything. And then one thing I did notice it's 14 minutes. The actual meat, like the actual kind of what you're coming to it for, I think, doesn't happen until more than 2/3 into the video. And the bulk of the video is stretched with synopsis of Totoro and Grave of the Fireflies, as well as like things that are Patreon. Like obviously you can plug your Patreon. I'm not saying you can't, but it was just that sort of. I was noticing that was like it's more than halfway through the video, and you really haven't gotten into that comparison part. You know, I feel like people can kind of get the gist of these two movies, or you can kind of integrate the summary of these movies into your analysis, and you could kind of remind the audience that's like, you know, this takes place and I think they kind of do that anyway with their analysis. So to me it was like I got the vibe that this could have been less than 10 minutes, but it can't. You can't let it be less than 10 minutes because it's a YouTube video, and if it's going to be less than 10 minutes, you may as well make it a short, which, you know, shorts, that's their own thing. And it's like, come on, man. I'm just unnecessary complaint, I guess, where it's just sort of like, I want to make short videos, but I don't want to make a YouTube short. You know what I mean? I don't want to, like, I'm being picky, I guess, but it's sort of like vertical video, very specific, like very like actually short. So you have to like think about how quick are you talking about the beginning, like starting your video is even more urgent, and then you kind of have to rush the end of the video. I've noticed that about shorts when people are trying to integrate into that format. It's hard, and I get there's a finesse to it. Obviously, there's a whole thing with TikTok and everything, and people are finding better ways to do it. But it's just hard for me as a YouTuber, I guess, or has been making videos like this for years. I'm not saying I'm adept to change or whatever, or not averse to change, I think is the word. It's just not what I'm feeling like making. It's like I can kind of see the necessary tools and stuff and the logic behind all of them. It's just not something that like appeals to. Not, I guess it's a personal thing, but like I can kind of see what I can kind of see where this coming into this, where it's like maybe the stuff that they're talking about here could be a short, and they could have converted any. I think all of our videos could be converted to shorts in some way or another, but it's more of a morsel compared to the, you know, the actual meat of it. But yeah, I don't know how much this justifies the length, to be honest with you, even if it's only just 14 minutes. That's just my personal take on it, though. But given how popular both of these movies are, they're Ghibli movies, you know, and you don't have to spend that much time literally summarizing the entire movie, like beginning to end, of both movies. You know, it's like I don't think you need to do that. That's just my personal opinion. But that's, I guess that's my general thing. I don't feel like, no matter the length, I don't feel like you need to do that. But that's just me. Yeah, but I did like the reading here, comparing the two, where it's like Totoro is more of a healing type of thing, and it's a mirroring where like it's a sad story that takes place in a happy world. Grave is a happy story that takes place in a sad world. I think there was some parallel that they're making there. Could be mistaken on that, but yeah, I did enjoy the video. Ultimately, it was just sort of yeah. Haha, glass reflection, Gundam Witch for Mercury, something old, something new. Look, he got cooked on one of the things he says in this video. Very side comment, and he doesn't really dwell on it that much. It's not like a major focus of the video or anything. It's really an offhand comment, and I could kind of tell based on how he says it that he hates that he has to say it. He's like, it's a sad fact, I guess, but like he got reamed for when he was saying that like I don't recommend any TV anime from the 70s unless it's Lupin the Third. Obviously, I have a problem with that, but like I'm kind of over. Like I'm not. A couple months ago, me would have been clutching their pearls over that. Like obviously. Easily a couple months ago, me, even last week, maybe, but but like in hindsight, it's like I can kind of get where he's coming from as a reviewer, as someone who does this as their living, reviewing and recommending anime to people. He's probably encountered this before, where people do genuinely don't want to watch anime older than 1999. I'm not even kidding you. It's totally you've probably know people like this. Or maybe you should and expand your bubble, because a lot of people feel this way, unfortunately. But like, So I get where he's coming from that practical sense, but it obviously the way he said it, it made it sound like he just doesn't think any of them are that good. I don't think that's wholly true. I would hope that's not actually true. But that's just what it is. And also just like he did not sell himself well on his experience with Gundam. I don't think at all, because because I know some people that turned this video off the moment they were like, "What's your experience with Gundam?" And he's like, "I watched the movie trilogy." I watched Wing. It's like, okay. Next. Yeah. No, but like if you look at his channel, he has reviews on Gundam 00, on Turn A Gundam. He loves Turn A Gundam. And in fact, like this Witch from Mercury having some parallels to Turn A Gundam, this stuff that he liked about it. Although it is funny, he released this video before before episode 6. Was it 6 or 7? It was the episode with Suletta in a dress that's like the exact same dress as Laurent, which was weird because like he pronounces it Doran in this video, and then it's like, but then you say Suletta, so like you really want to make a specific case for Doran, but then Sudetta, you don't want to call it. It was double standards. That's all I'm saying. Not a big deal. I will say that this is like, I am dwelling on that point a lot with the 70s thing, and he didn't sell himself well on like being a Gundam fan, and coming from that perspective. But the weirder thing for me was just like all this talk about comparing it to Utena and Code Geass. Huh? he did not explain that one like at all. Like Gundam is like Geass the way Geass is like Gundam. Geass came after Gundam, and Gundam Mercury is taking from the rest of Gundam, which is taking from Geass. Like, why? I don't think he made enough specific, direct comparisons. The way I think he obviously does Utena, because it's easy. And the way that, like, he talks about Utena, too, is just very clumsy to me. Look, he doesn't seem to be much of a fan. There was another point. There's a point in this video where I'm like, why? What's the point of this? Is like, he goes through this like montage. It's like the same three. It's like, I think Geass is really important. And does that mean I like Geass? That'll be for another video. Utena is one of the most classic and well-known. Blah, blah, blah. Do I like Utena? No. Like, why do you have to talk about your opinions of these shows in the context of that? Just talk about Witch from Mercury, which is great. It's a great show, and I just think he was like caught up in the context and like what this means on a broader. Like, sure, that stuff's interesting. I certainly find that interesting when I first started watching Gundam Mercury, and it is just Utena kind of deal. Not just Utena. And again, the thing is, I don't want to reduce it to that, because I really like this show. I don't want to make this about my opinion about it, but like, I love the main character. I love that it's set in a school, and then it's like, it's refreshing, and the production's incredible. The music's great. It's just really well produced, and just a lot of fun. And it's exciting to see the weekly Gundam, I think it's popping off very well. Maybe compared, since I can't have a frame of reference, but like, it feels like this is a very popular Gundam title. It's becoming one, which is, it's fun, and it's exciting. Anyway, I just think that, like, I don't know if he did a great job really selling and emphasize, because he seemed to like it. There were some things that he said. I do wish I took some notes, but like, the one thing he was just like, the whole thing with Gundam being evil and like killing its pilots. He's like, as good of a flaw as that is, I don't think it's gonna last. And that's a call. You can make speculation all you want, but I'm like, are we watching the same show? Like, that's so fundamental to the plot of this story that like it's kind of the only reason that they are in this position. I don't know. And what makes Suletta special, and not like the only thing, I guess, but like, because I like Suletta a lot, but like, That was weird. um, there's certain takes of it throughout this. I would say that throughout this video, there's like weird, misplaced, and like kind of a misguided focus, and I don't know, it just felt weird and a little maybe rushed. Maybe I don't know. I obviously, I have not ire, I guess, but like I'm not the biggest fan when like you make a video about a series that's not even close to done, that's airing right now. I mean, it makes sense with like something like Chainsaw Man or Bleach, Thousand Year Blood War, because there's an existing manga and we know where it's going. This is an original anime that we really don't know where it's gonna go. It could, you remember all those videos about Wonder Egg Priority when it first came out? Like a ton from like the first episode, which is a great first episode, don't get me wrong, but like, and then where that series went, interesting. I don't know. It like, I get the impressions are important. I've talked about this before, and I'm a broken record, but I don't know, it was weirdly misplaced and kind of strange choices in this bit. Not just the take of I don't recommend people and TV anime from the 70s unless it's Lupin. Weird. I don't know. It just also just didn't make sense to say that in this video. What does that have to? I don't know. Again, I think he was obsessed with the context and everything surrounding it, rather than what's right in front of him is a good show. That's just my take. Spirit Chaser with a really good video. Not a surprise, I would say. It's just like, I'm happy to see it. The last great Dazaki anime everyone missed, including myself. That's right. Snow Queen. I definitely didn't know. I didn't look into it much. And he does have a point of like, it was weird that everybody in the West seems to completely ignore his stuff from the 2000s onwards. And my argument, I would say, is that it's not that we do, it's that that's the only stuff we ever got at the time. When you think about it, I don't know about Snow Queen being released here, but that's obviously what was airing in the 2000s. But we got Clanad movie, we got Air movie, we got Ultraviolet, I'm pretty sure. I think I don't know if we got Genji, I don't remember. But like, there's so much of his classic stuff that we never really got, and that was always the stuff that like we've been pushing people to see, right? And yeah, this is true that, and I think Spirit Chaser would see it, like he talks about how it's like, yeah, I mean, I watched them and it's like, yeah, a lot of them really aren't to write home about. It's like, hey, I can kind of understand why they didn't really talk about it as much. But Snow Queen is like, no, actually, I think this one's up there with his other work, at least up with like Hagage Densetsu or whatever. And that's what the vibe I was getting for sure. There's like, it feels like the same level and oversaturation of his style. One thing I would say about Dazaki that I was kind of noticing, and I could be wrong about this, but it does seem there's a certain point where he locked down a style and his techniques that he is so famous for that it is unmistakably him, and he goes really hard on those techniques. Like, it's instinct, it's like every couple minutes, if that, like every minute, there's probably at least one trademark Dazaki style from him, and that's what I love about his stuff. Like I'm not complaining. That's catnip for me. But it is very noticeable and overwhelming in series like Onisama A, Hagage Densetsu, and it seems like for this one, and maybe that have just been Spirit Chaser's selections of clips, which the best merit of this video is how much he shows. He's really packing as much clips, shots from as many, it seemed like a lot of episodes, which is impressive. And that's the sort of thing I really champion about videos like this, especially ones that like have nobody's talking about, not even like niche people like myself. I didn't talk about this series at all. I didn't show any clips from this. I had never seen it. I certainly want to, and I certainly want to now that I've seen this. It was so funny. I'll just add to my observation with this from what Spirit Chaser's talking about and describing this story. It was interesting. I had no idea that Snow Queen, this anime, seems to be more of an anthology and taking from a bunch of different world fairy tales. Not world as in, it seems probably mostly from Hans Christian Andersen and a lot of his stuff that he wrote. But Match Girl is in this. It seemed from one clip I saw the Dancing Shoes are in this. And Dazaki directed an episode based on this story in the 70s from Mangaseke Mukashi Banashi. And it made me think, oh my gosh. So it's sort of like a full circle moment for him. He worked so much on Mangaseke, all these different episodes, and then he was able to kind of transfer that experience like 30 years later. Yeah, like 30 years later, from 1975 and then 2005. And reincorporate it into this more narrative structure. I think that's so interesting. And yeah, I just really like that he put a lot of like A&V sections in this to just, it's just for the sake of showing you as much as possible, because he knows nobody has seen this show. So it's sort of like a, here, let me show you as much as I can, get you the most much of an experience out of it, because obviously a 25 episode show that you can barely find, it's hard to actually get a hand on, is worth showing in this form. I think that's awesome. Yeah, I liked his observations about it. I liked his ruminations, how it's like in retrospect, this made me think about Violet Evergarden and actually lowered my score of that show and put this in my favorites instead of it. That was really interesting. And seeing that as a process or as a choice is interesting. I don't know. So it's saying interesting a lot. Of course, it wouldn't be digest. I'm sure you missed it. Me saying interesting 500 times. But yeah, I really enjoyed this video. It's obviously goes with Zaki, and yeah, obviously I liked the video. Big surprise. Can't talk, but yeah, really enjoyed this. It's a good time. Yeah, I did check out this Jaiden Animations video, which, it's not really about anime, but it's Digimon, which is technically an anime. It was Tamagotchi first, I believe, because it's media mix, right? And anime was one of the first and primary things that people know about it. So I was like, yeah, and of course I'm interested in comparing, framing it as Pokemon fan plays Digimon and hated it. Interesting, exciting. Even though obviously I'm on Team Pokemon mostly, the fact I've seen 4 seasons of the anime, I like to think I'm a Digimon fan of sorts. And yeah, this is interesting because the big thing I wanted to take away is an old man yells at cloud moment for me again. I feel like that's a lot in this when I'm making these videos, I guess. Is that she talked about her process of selecting a Digimon game to play on stream, I believe. I don't know. You know what? I don't know if it was on stream or if it was for the purpose of this video. I think she's trying to make this video and she's choosing what Digimon game to play as a newbie, as a Pokemon fan, and that's interesting. I think that's a good idea. But it was a little misguided because she didn't realize that this is not really much of a game series first. And then that's not my opinion. I watched a video after this. I'm sorry if I don't remember the creator's name, but if you look up Jaiden Animations Digimon, you'll find it. There's tons of people reacting to this video, including myself, of course. But the one I watched, he was mentioning how it's really an anime first, and we're just it's multimedia. And the games are one piece of that, and so starting with the games is interesting. And she does bring up a good observation that the fans cannot decide what is the best game to start with as a newcomer. And the person that I was watching, his recommendation was this one game that seems to be a fairly straight adaptation of Digimon Adventure that is only on the PSP or PS Vita, that was never brought over to the United States. But he argues that based on the footage that Jaiden shows, she's emulating this game that she ended up choosing. The one she did choose. She's emulating it. So it's like, if you're willing to emulate that game, you probably would have been okay emulating this other game that obviously never had an English release, but would probably be a better suit for newcomers or something. And that's obviously just his opinion. Apparently there's a flurry of opinions, and she emphasizes that she knew the shortcomings going in, and then she still hated it. Like, really has nothing nice to say about this game. Still comes out as a Digimon fan, according to her. She's like, I got my buddies. I think they're neat, you know. But obviously, this is not a great choice. But one of the things that I noticed that again, old man yells at cloud moment for me was that she had a game that people were recommending she should play as her first, Cyber Sleuth, I believe. And she says, I'm not interested because that's not what I want to make for content. She's like, it's more like a Persona game, and I'm not looking for that right now. She definitely said for content, though. Like, was she really... it was at a time thing? She complains, by the way, that, like, the game that she did choose, she had to, like, cheat a bunch it's like, guess how long it took me to beat the game? 15 hours. And that was with an action replay and looking up how to win and everything. 15 hours? You're playing a video game, right? Do you know how long Pokemon games take? If you don't speed up and use an emulator, 24 hours. That's kind of the average. It's usually what it's the average. That's you can't invest that amount for a Digimon game. Like, that was weird to me. I don't know if it was a time sensitive thing where it's like in terms of her schedule, busy content creator. I get it. Kind of get it. Not really. It's self-imposed, really. But also like it's just choosing it for like. Did you think it wouldn't have been good content? Did you really just kind of like, I don't know. And there's another creator I will talk about that I did watch their video. I didn't put on that I will talk about that, like, you really could have. It's that vibe of like, oh, you're really a content creator if you're making decisions not based on your own personal desires, but based on what YouTube wants, what your audience wants, which I don't like. It's just like the last thing I want. But at the same time, it's like, you want the things. Do you want a paycheck? Do you want your next meal? Dude, what are you asking me those questions for? Back off. Like, I don't want that to be determined by that. Does it like artistic integrity or food? That's awful. That's an awful choice. Why would you make that choice for you? Anyway, not a big deal. I'm being melodramatic maybe in regards to Jaiden, but like it was just like, yeah. that rubbed me off the wrong way. But still going through with this video where she very clearly says, I made a mistake. I really should have chosen this other game that people were recommending. She's like, I swear I'll play it next time. When's next time? Do you know what I mean? It's like, that was your shot. That was your first impression of Digimon. And you're never going to get it back. It'll always be this. And you've also immortalized it in a video like this. I hope people are being nice. I think you softened the blow significantly, the way that your humor and the way you were like, I still liked Digimon at the end of it. And it's just like, okay. And just, it wasn't like the game itself sort of deal. But like, man, it's just sort of tough to see, I guess. Skill issue, what I was talking about in my Naruto video, right? Where it's like, it's the circumstances and environment you put yourself in to allow yourself to enjoy something, right? I'm happy she's not being honest about like, yeah, I used an action replay and yada yada yada. But yeah, that was rough to go through. Not like I disliked the video. I thought she's a very good content creator, very affable, and I like her animations. And yeah, I mean it's an enjoyable video, but it's more of just like, damn, a lot of mistakes. Not mistakes, but like, you know what I mean. Tough things to watch. Tough lessons. That's a good word for it. Now calling the mistakes tough lesson. Yeah. MercuryFalcon, Captain Harlock, the anti-sports anime. Yeah, I really like this one. I like that he mentioned that it started with the beginning with like talking about Spokon, which is a term I never heard of before. which really emphasizes the emphasis of sports, the proliferation of sports and sports media in Japan, and having it kind of have this sentiment of like Japanese pride, almost a pseudo nationalism, almost, and then contrasting that with Captain Harlock, where he has this sort of like the crew is full of losers and outcasts, and he's like, you should pursue and be willing to die for what you believe in, and not for the sake of some pride or like ideal or whatever. It's more like you roll how you want to roll, and it's sort of like the otaku hero almost. I think he says that in the video, but then the title is more SEO friendly. It's like, okay, yeah, I feel you. But I really like the vid, and I like that he was able to contrast Harlock with Yamato and kind of dissuade a little bit of misinformation, or just the perception that Yamato is a Leiji title. Like, it's a very core Leiji title, where like Leiji kind of came in a little later, a little after the thing, and it was helmed by a different guy who had a lot more stronger views on Japanese national pride and such, and I like that. And contrasting the events at the beginning of Yamato versus the beginning of Harlock, and those certain things. I think those are very smart observations, and I liked him talking about Harlock in this way for sure. I don't think I ended up getting the same amount of appreciation for it for the series from watching it. I'm saying from watching it. But the video itself, I think, was very additive in that way, and giving you like an additional perspective to watch and appreciate, not simply of just like kind of, this is why Harlock is good or something like that. I think it's kind of emphasizing its place in the community, in the broader medium of anime, I guess. Yeah, I enjoy it for that. It was a very good video. TheCynicClinic, yay! Big fan. So I'm the biggest fan. Nobody cares how many anime you've seen. Fuck you. And he definitely caught me with the I have completed 500 anime, and some of you thought, oh, that's it. Where I definitely did that. I was like, oh, I didn't know there was that many, huh? And he goes on. I watched this video twice. You know, it's a man, I would watch every video of his like 4 times, just out of just like gaining more of his perspective and stuff, and just, you know, I love his stuff so much. But like, you know, he has the same like polish and everything with the rest of his videos. I think he's been able to nail something. So, not to say that he's hit a peak, but there is sort of just like, you found the sweet spot. Don't change anything. Keep it up. You got some good shit going on. And I just love his topics too. Every single one is so up my alley and what I'm interested in. It's like, I can't imagine that this isn't doing like baller. Like, this doesn't fucking smash. I hate it. I hate that this other shit's more popular than like the actual truth, actual good shit. You know what I mean? Like, fuck, man. Ugh. Whatever. But enough of the complaint about that. But like, I really liked him talking about Ocean's video, about his perspective on that like dichotomy of seen versus completed. Like, you've seen Naruto, but you haven't completed Naruto. And I did almost have a similar approach when I was talking about my reason for watching filler in Naruto in my upcoming video, which, you know, I rearranged that. I didn't really end up going with that direction. I was like, oh, I'm an anime guy, and I wanted to market complete, you know. I thought it was kind of a dumb reason, but I think Cynical Guy was actually able to make a good counter argument to that, while also giving his own personal example, where he's like, you know, I am putting my money where my mouth is here. I haven't marked completed on Bleach because I haven't watched all of Bleach, even though I have read the manga twice and rewatched a bunch of stuff countless times, and I don't really need to have completed Bleach if it's such a core part of my experience. Like, what does this number have to do with it? And, you know, I will also say about the culture of this sort of thing, right? Yes, people do care a lot about that one number, but it was very important that he gave the full context of that number alone. Because what he's talking about, I love this argument of this person who's seen 24 anime versus over 1,000, and completely gets the nail on the head of these people who have watched 1,000, where like they don't care about this, they just watch this, but they're just consumerist, right? I think that context is very important. But like, I guess for me, as someone who does size up people on their mal, like if I see a mal, I do want to size them up, right? And you know, the completed is one aspect, but like there is another of dropped, like how many of the anime have you dropped, I think is a big one for me, because I'm obviously like my own personal thing is I don't drop anything. I just, you know, put it back on the plan to watch and forget I've seen anything of it, or get to it later or whatever. I just don't mark it down in some cases. Not that but it's not like I dropped this, you know. And obviously people say they've dropped for different reasons, right? Of course. But there's also, I do look into their favorites. I do look at their favorite list. I go into their actual list and I'm looking at those completed, because I would obviously notice if they have the fucking Code Geass picture drama listed as completed. And I'm like, okay, you know, like I can, you know, there's discernment there. And I think he does make good points of just like, yeah, you can list like 20 entries of Attack on Titan, but One Piece is the one. Well, Monster I think was a good example actually. With the whole franchise of Monsters, it's just 3, and then like One Piece is a one TV series versus like seasons and stuff. The way Agretzko is broken down. But yeah, aggressive Retsuko. No, but like really great arguments, and like I can still picture them. You know, it doesn't go in my head one ear out the other. Appreciate the shout out for digesting everything. That was funny. And full disclosure, I did see it coming when you had the screenshot of his thing, and I could tell it was from my video because I know. So I'm just like, oh, is he about to reference Not Good? And then yeah, I was like, oh, okay, that's funny. Although I think he changed it. I think it's because he changed it. I could be wrong. I need to look. I need to scroll down and find it. Nope. No, he hasn't changed it. It's the same title and thumb. But yeah, I thought it was funny. Appreciated that. But yeah, it's a great video. Good lord. Big fan. Naoki URUSAWA's channel, I don't think I've talked about a video from him in a while. I don't feel like he uploads that often. And I think there was something towards the end of this video. It was just a month ago that he drew something from Pluto. That's good. But I think he was saying it was like he was kind of struggling with what to show and what to talk about. Of course, this video is also to promote the 6th volume of Asadora. But I think he had a really cool idea here of important to manga, how to draw superior side characters. It is full. If you don't know of his channel, it is fully subbed in English. I usually like closed captions, which is what I appreciate doing ultimately. Yeah, and like it's mostly just montage of him drawing, and it's a little sped up in places, and which is fine. It makes sense. And so like it spends maybe like 5 or 6, maybe I'm exaggerating, like a good amount of time drawing the actual character in the way that he does, which is always very interesting. And then he talks about that character that he drew. He does 2 of his characters, and he just kind of introduces them in a way, and I'm just like, this is what this character is all about, like after he draws them. I feel like if he did commentary as he was drawing, perhaps it could be synced up or something. I don't know, in a way that like feels like smooth. Not that the drawing montages without any talking was bad. I think it's very relaxing and interesting, and makes you focus on the drawing itself and not necessarily what he's saying. But maybe he would have been able to say more. It just felt like, you know, time constraint, or I don't know. But I would have liked to even more of insight on side characters in general, and not just these 2 and what, like, you know, drawing superior side characters in that regard. I guess I just would have wanted more like specific details, I guess. Although I did really like what he was talking about towards the end of sort of a spin-off type thing, where he was showing how to draw older people, like elderly, where he's like, don't draw the neck. And then you see kind of make something like this, and it's like, oh, you could kind of make a character sort of like this, and he draws a separate character, and it's like it's all about the posture, and that the posture speaks on the personality basically. So whatever whatever structure you have them in is what you have to like. I don't know. I feel that makes sense. Yeah, the posture determining the personality. I like that. So certain things like that I appreciated. But yeah, it was interesting. I like that he's using it as kind of an update channel of sorts when he's talking to fans, because he's talking about like signed copies of this of Asadora, and he's like, I'll draw something, but he says like, don't ask me to draw Adam, Astro Boy, or Johan, because because of the way that like he's drawing on like cardboard or whatever. He's like, I don't think those two characters in particular are going to turn out as those characters. Like, they won't look the way you want them to look, or the way he'll probably want them to look, because I imagine maybe there's something to be said about those two, that like he's very precise perhaps, and he's like, I don't think I'll be able to recapture that on the material that I'm drawing on. So it's like, maybe don't recommend those characters that like are like easily the most popular ones he probably gets requested. Perhaps maybe there's like friend from 20th Century Boys probably gets a lot. Anyway, yeah, but I enjoy that, seeing this as a vehicle for his artistic endeavors basically. It's kind of a side thing, other people are helping and stuff. I don't know, it's neat. Who has the best thumbnails on AniTube? Battle of the Thumbnails 2022 from On the Rise A&V. I hadn't seen any of his stuff before, but I really liked that it was a collaboration with various YouTubers like Mikey Ubi and Colleen and Karori Rapado. I wasn't familiar with the Inaku. I also knew. The other two I didn't know, and then a lot of the YouTubers they talked about, they weren't with a lot of the long-standing big ones actually, which was refreshing. It's really nice that YouTube's a much broader place than I realize. Or the things that I'm, at least stuff that I click on. You know, a lot of the videos are just like, I'm not really interested. But like, they're talking about a lot of different creators. Masked Man was on here. Lines in Motion was getting a lot of love. But I just like that it was a YouTuber bringing in other YouTubers to heap praise onto other YouTubers. Like, that's a lot of fun. Like, that was really cool. The organization and like process of voting them was weird. I kind of would have liked, this is an alternate idea and you can run with whatever. To me, it felt like there was a lot of emphasis on the competition and who wins, which, like, you don't get anything if you win. And that's fine. It's great. That's totally fine. You can just get, it's just cool that people get to talk about your stuff. I think that's the main value of it, right? And that's one of the reasons I do digests, is I'm able to talk about other people's videos, and you don't really get this sort of video face, feedback of your video. You almost never. It's weird, but it's special. At least I've felt that when people bring up my videos in their videos, right? It's like, oh, it's fun. I think it would have been cool if these 6 YouTubers, as well as yourself, because I feel like on the Rise A&V, I liked that you hosted this. I really did, and I think it was a great conceit. I would have loved to hear your perspective on these things, and I think you were worried that you would have had to choose who the best because you have, there's so many good ones. But also, like, what is your opinion about it? I don't know. I feel like you could have inputted your stuff as well. Maybe it's like, no, I'm the host. Let these people, and that's fair, that perspective. But what I was thinking was, like, instead of really emphasizing who has the best and selecting one winner and kind of splitting hairs of just like, oh boy, if everyone chooses a different YouTuber and we don't have 2 people that can agree, then there's no winner and I have to choose, and it's up to me or whatever. I feel like that drama, while engaging and kind of has a bit of suspense to it for sure, I feel like it took away from, like, what makes these thumbnails so good, right? And I think people were talking about thumbnails in general, which was nice, but I kind of would have liked, what I think must have happened here, especially because the way you edited this video, you have this like jump scare sort of thing where you have to force you give them 5 seconds to decide on somebody, and they're like, oh, they all kind of freak out. It's cute and fun, But it showed to me that you definitely recorded each of these separately, and that's fine. That's the way you went about it. But I kind of would have liked if you, obviously this would have been kind of hard given how many people you're working with. Like, granted, it's only 7 of you total. If it's even more, like, forget it. But like, you know those Variety Fair, is it Vanity Fair? I have to find it. There is a type of video that's been getting made recently, which I really like. To find in my watch later, because I put one of them in my watch later, I think. No, it was basically like roundtables of actresses or directors or writers. That it's like, it's cool to see these two guys talk, like the director of Everything Everywhere All at Once talking with Jordan Peele, director of Nope. I'm sorry, Daniel Kwan, and talking with the director of Nope, talking with this other director, talking with they're all in a round table and they're discussing their process, and you don't know where the discussion's going to go. You have a host that kind of guides certain questions and stuff, but like, it would have been really nice or really exciting maybe if you had everybody together and you have each of them have their two that they're presenting as what they think is their the best thumbnail, and the best thumbnails, which YouTuber has the best thumbnails, and then everyone's, pitching in and kind of like, oh, they have really good contrast, and they're giving their feedback on them, right? And obviously it could be kind of a long form podcasty type of thing, but then if you want to trim it into a succinct video, right, you know what I mean, it could be kind of edited in that way. I don't know, I just think that would be, maybe I'm asking for an entirely different video, but I think that the real value of this, besides of course bringing content creators together to talk about other content creators, is that dialogue, is that like feed and then talking about it. And I think bouncing off of each other ends up being, you get more fruitful stuff potentially. I think, at least I think so. But I really like this conceit. I'm really happy with that you did it. Congrats to I think it was, I forget his name, I'm so sorry. He was a JoJo YouTuber, and I was like, yeah, it was probably the best thumbs. I don't know. I like this discussion. I like this format. It was good stuff. And also you have a very good energy as a host. I actually really liked you as a host, and having this little skit thing at the beginning, and and narrating in that way. It was dramatic and fun. Yeah, it was a good time. Liked it. The making of One Piece Film Red. I'm talking about Toei's upload because that's the one that I saw. But I think I noticed that Crunchyroll also uploaded something like this. This behind the scenes featurette of Film Red, and wow, I really like this. And I was like, man, I wish every anime film got something like this, where you would think of it maybe be surface level, but no, I actually think they talk to a lot of people, not just the director or like whoever, but really a ton of people. And when they mention somebody's like, oh, we handle it with this person, they would get to talk, and they had a lot of input in this featurette, as well as just I really like the focus, because it's not what you would expect. I guess I was kind of more expecting, more of the visual front, and like the going into certain sequences, which they do, and they focus mainly on the choreography sections, like the musical montages, because those were actually like super hard to figure out how to do, and they kind of did it in a different way. Not in a different way, I guess, but in a way that like, very few studios have done this before, kind of deal. Like taking motion capture of an actual choreographed dancer, choreograph this whole thing, and then they trace it on top of it and everything. But I like that the featurette really starts and spends a lot of time on the writing process, because they were like, look, we had this idea. It's like, what if we involve Shanks? And it's like, okay, what's our theme? Let's do songs. It's like, oh, that's weird, because they were like, One Piece isn't associated with songs, and I'm like, yeah, it kind of is. I think you knew there was an angle, right? At least it seems that way. And like, Oda really likes music. I like that they kept talking about Oda's involvement, and what it's like, oh, when I didn't know what to do for the climax, we were kind of having a difficult time with the emotional parts. And then Oda's like, it's okay if she has a relationship with Luffy, like when they were kids. And they're like, oh. and they don't say this, but I got the vibe where it's like, is she canon? And she's like, yeah, I can make it canon. It's just, it's like, yeah, I don't mind. Yeah, go for it. It's which is like, oh, and like I like to think of it because she is in the One Piece manga. Granted, like very briefly, like a little one panel silhouette, but she is in there. Hell yeah. Anyway, but like, yeah, so that was really cool. Hearing about their writing process was especially interesting. And then how it kind of slowly morphed into like, okay, how do we do songs? Okay, this is Uta character, and then there's and there's no spoilers in this. There's a little bit like there's one point where they're like, there's a scene where Uta gets mad and fights Luffy, and I'm like, yep, yeah, very much gets mad and fights Luffy. But yeah, I just was appreciative that they didn't have any spoilers at all. They don't focus at all on the conclusion fight. They really mostly focus on the concert sequences, and they were really like emphasizing that, which I think was exciting and creative and a fascinating problem to solve. One of the art director, he was talking about like making the creating the island for it and the kind of the look for it. And there's one part he's just like, it came to me in a dream, where we had like a harp thing, this big structure coming out of it, and he's like, yeah, dead ass became a dream, and they were like, yeah, they liked it, so it's like, okay. So that was funny. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. Again, I wish we got more of these, honestly, for any type of anime movie. Oh my gosh, it's just really well produced and fascinating. Yeah, very top notch. Red Bard with an anime video on Fractale versus the anime industry, which, I think this is very on brand for her, talking about Yamakan and his whole Shira, his whole thing, and not really talking about Fractale at all. And she talks about how it's like, it's really not as interesting as the context around it, and sort of its history with Funimation having that drama of halting its simulcast until they could take down every pirated version of episode 1, and not just the ones with their subs on it, every piloted everything, all of it, take it all down, end piracy. It's like, oh, I'd have a how do you catch a wave upon the sand. It's just, if anyone understood that reference, please let me know in the comments if you understood that reference at whatever time code this is. Remember, she really does her thing with this, kind of just diving through ANN's archive. That's kind of her thing, I guess. It feels like several of her videos have felt that way, where it's like, it really is just like, here's all the evidence and here's all the thing, and just kind of packaging it as a video. And yeah, it makes sense, and I'm happy it's done. Although it's just like, I feel like she really removes herself from all of this. And, I get maybe not stepping in personally, because this is very sensitive topics, perhaps. But like, there's a lot of that. I think I talked about it with Bennett, where there's this vibe of edging very, very intentionally, just like, can't quite. And look, I do that in digest all the time because I'm off script. And I'm trying to find the words for it, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's all build up and no payoff. But that's because I'm unscripted, right? And sometimes I have notes, and maybe I could do retakes, but God, if I did retakes of this. Did you know this is almost entirely one take? But it just makes the videos feel very impersonal to me personally. It makes them impersonal. But like, I don't know, it ends up being really just about the information, which is fine. That's a take and it's a play. But I've talked about this, where kind of the best thing about YouTube that more and more people are taking advantage of, and the more I'm noticing it, the more I'm we were mentioning this with the Raymona video about her Sailor Moon thing, where the bulk of the video is about her journey making the video. Well, aside from the editing and stuff, but like, the actual kind of research phase and finding this out is the content itself. And the two videos just recently, which are getting a lot of praise and deservedly so, they're really good. Defunctland and HBomberGuy talking about various sounds and getting proper credit. The process of finding that, right, is the same thing with Raymona, where it's the journey and not so much the destination. And YouTube has that. And I'm not saying Red Bart, this is missing from Red Bart's video, but what those videos represent is it's their personal. I'm there for Defunctland. I'm there for HBomberGuy. I'm not necessarily there to find out the answer for the fucking oof sound. You know what I mean? And it's like I'm remotely interested, but it's more like I get to watch an hour and a half of HBomberGuy's writing, presentation, comedy, his way of, and the things he finds interesting, right? But for Red Bard, it's like I would want more of that, I guess, and or just don't be afraid to kind of jump in. It's just like, here's my perspective as the things that I've heard. You know, there was one offhand comment where it's like you say like after like the obsession with moe in the late 2000s, early 2010s, and then Red Bard's like, that's a term I haven't heard in a while. You know, that's a seasoned anime fan right there, which makes sense. It sounds like she's been in this fandom for a long time. And so, I mean, I don't know, from that personal experience, perhaps, or just something that, like, I'm okay with you inserting yourself here and there. Obviously within reason, but, like, if it's just pure, just, like, the stuff you found on ANN, I feel like a lot of this stuff was stuff I knew already. I just didn't know in the extensive detail that you're talking about to make it fleshed as a video, perhaps. You know what I mean? Or all the diving of the forum comments and stuff like that. I haven't dug into it, and I appreciate that digging. Don't get me wrong, but that's just something I've noticed that is just like, yeah, I could go for that. Otherwise, it's just very, just informative, and that's kind of it. But that's okay. Again, it's not a big deal. But yeah, this is what I would say. This is because it's a unique advantage for YouTube, I would say, that I think you could take more advantage of. Keep using my vocabulary is Keksi. I'm finally talking about a video from your boy. Oh man, it's been a long time coming, and I'm sorry it's taking me this long. And I think this is the best video to talk about, because it really is like the best video I watched this month. Granted, I have a couple other videos I still have to watch that are very long, that I have, you know, I haven't watched quite yet, but in terms of this batch and everything and looking at all of them, this was excellent. This was so good, because it does have that, what I was just talking about, where it's the YouTuber, I DM'd this person, then they got respond, and then I clicked this thing, and I go here and I try this, and you don't really know where this is going, right? And especially you kind of get in this case, the mystery is, where did this photo come from? That he's just kind of obsessed with. It's just one of those things that he posts kind of sporadically as a Squid Girl fan. But then it goes into that very similar hiding in public type of thing, where it's really introducing you to this whole community of Twitter users that are very not obsessive, I guess, but just are big Squid Girl fans that kind of bring their dolls and their plushies and everything to various sporting events and things like that, and enjoying a community of that. And that's kind of the heart towards the end of the video. And he's like, I've been misguiding you about something, about one thing and this thing here or whatever. That was cute. But I also just really liked that this where this went. And I was thinking about, should I spoil it, should I not? And I think I wanted to mention it. But like the photo in question involves this like 75-inch Squid Girl doll, huge comparatively to like most other things. And so it kind of ends with him getting one of these dolls and recreating the photo, it's like so good. That's such a good YouTube thing. And I don't know if Brand is a YouTube, I guess, but that's just like, that's viral shit. That's like, that should go viral. You know what I mean? That's like so classic, and it's so cool and funny. And I really like that. That's one segment walking from the IHOP to the pier, and you're getting people's reactions and stuff, and your reaction to that was really funny. And then just like, you're kind of like, this is why people do it, and this is what it's like, and commenting on that felt very affirming, and like I don't know, just it grew into a really beautiful thing that like I feel like the tunnel of the what I would say about the Ramona thing with and other H. Bomber guy and Defunctland, I do have a bit of a issue that I've it's like once you've seen it you can't unsee it, where it's like you couldn't find enough material for the video, so the process has to be what the video is, you know, because it's hard. How do you present that? It's like, how about in the order in which I discovered it? And there's certainly an investment to that. There's a journey, there's a beginning, middle, and end. There's a story there. I certainly think there's something to that. But there is, it does kind of bloat the video, you know? Those 3 videos I'm talking about, not this one. Those previous videos, they're all over an hour. In fact, I think all 3 of them are close to an hour and a half. The Raymona one might be 2. I don't remember. But like, you know, it's like, how much of that is, obviously it's good content if you like the creator, right? If you like Defunctland's way of describing things and the things he shows and the things he decides to spend time and focus on, he's a great content creator. So of course an hour and a half of anything from him is going to be great, you know? It's that quality type of thing. But like, this is something I was reconciling with myself. It's like, do I really like that? Is this something I really want to champion? And I think where this particular one ends up, because I don't think you intended, or maybe you did, I did not get the impression that you intended to, by the end of this, to have one of these plushies and recreate the photo itself. That was such a welcome surprise and kind of fun, and it really like put you money where your mouth is almost in a real tangible way, because apparently this was like you're like in debt now, which is funny. You know, in a YouTuber debt kind of way, right? Where it's like, yeah, it's a financial hit, but it's fucking worth it. Yeah. Yeah, but I love where this goes, and I do like your humor a lot, and I like the edits and stuff. Yeah, this is really good. I'm talking about a video from Snake Eye Dreams, Nana and the Con. The Con is referring to a album, and what he does is contrast, or not, I guess contrast is not the word. He kind of twists his analysis of Nana and him talking about it with this in the context of this album. Every few minutes, or maybe after a paragraph or so, he has someone narrate lyrics from this album, and he gives context at the beginning of the video of what this album is about and the context and the kind of the rationale behind it. But honestly, like, it got a little repetitive in terms of the back and forth of his analysis, which was good. It was good analysis. I really liked his prose and the things he's observing and connecting to the real world. And I liked him talking about Nana. With this album, which I also liked, I also saw the connections that he was implicitly making. But that's the thing. Implicitly. He never addresses the album again once he starts his analysis. All he does is give it in the Nana analysis and then chooses one chunk of a song. I don't know where in the track list this is. I don't know what the full song is about. Obviously, I don't expect to listen to the song. Maybe that would have been nice, but I get you're trying to avoid whatever. But like, you just kind of give the lyrics, and the viewer's kind of meant to sort of allude to it. It's like, oh, I see what you mean. I can see the parallels. I'm making the connections for myself, which can kind of only go so far, I think. I feel like at the end, I got to know more about Nana, although I've seen Nana, and I didn't necessarily need that, because I think you were saying things that I was like, yep, that's Nana, you know, and it's like agreeable things. Not that it's useless and not additive. I think it's additive. I think it was very good. But then you're kind of leaving it up to us to make the connection. It felt like that to me. And, I mean, come on. You could do that. You could totally do that yourself, right? I feel like I didn't get enough of, like, the album, which I had never heard of. And I think that would have been more additive if it was like, it's like, I love the idea of connecting this show to this album. I think there is connections there, but it doesn't, I could be wrong. Maybe I misremember or misheard something, but like, it didn't seem like you ever acknowledge or allude to the album itself, which I think, you know, if you kind of were able to twist analysis of those two ththings together and weave them in such a way, I think that would have been even better. As is, you kind of do it, and it's nice. It's a good video. I felt that lack, you know. I was like, oh, I wish it went more into that sort of thing, which, you know, is what it is. But yeah, interesting idea. It was a good time. Mother's Basement with anime CGI phobia, and I did see some threads criticizing this video, which, like, were kind of just certain, like, it's like little corrections, but it really wasn't disagreeing with the broader point, which I think was good. That he's, I like that he says that he's like, I've been trying to be less confrontational in my videos, and then goes on to be very confrontational in this about how incredibly wrong people are about their if just the mere existence of CG is bad and makes it worse or something. And he really goes through a lot of different arguments and shows is the vast, the kind of the breadth of stuff that he's referencing, I think, is really strong. And I like that he's kind of looping it, like starting with Chainsaw Man and ending it back on Chainsaw Man. There's certainly certain things that he does say that's like, yeah, that's like Mob, where it's like Mob Psycho is easy to draw because it has simple character designs, when there is actual proof. Like there's an interview with people at Madhouse not wanting to come over and animate Mob. Like, people are like kind of apprehensive of working on Mob Psycho because it's challenging, because the designs are actually challenging based on certain factors. Not just about drawing, isn't about shapes. It's about shapes, but it's also about like the way it moves, the precise way that it moves, the width and thickness of these lines, and kind of like keeping that consistent. There's a lot of different things about Mob that makes it challenging in its own right. The designs are not necessarily simple merely for the fact that they are rounded and are just dots, or the one guy is the shape of a cube. Actually, like, if it is the shape of a cube, that means you have to actually make sure the perspective is right. That's not easy. That's not as easy as you're making it sound. Like, I think there's something to be said about the human facsimile. Like, we can kind of just draw a shape. That's the vague sense of a head, and people can kind of connect the dots, right? There's the suspension of disbelief. But when you're saying this character's head is a cube, then it's got to be a fucking cube. You can't just half-ass that. It's got to be a fucking cube, right? So there's difference there. And then there's another thing he says where 2D cars just don't animate well, and Initial D is still the best depiction of cars in motion in animation, and just doesn't know what Cagliostro was. He made a whole video about Cagliostro. The car chase in that? Are you kidding? Not to knock Initial D. I actually really like Initial D. And I think there is something to be said about Initial D's the first stage's CG being more immersive or more captivating than even the last stage, or the movies, which are adapting their first stage again, which is kind of the height of like technology. And those actually, it's all based on the art direction. It's not purely because of CG. It's how you use it. And it's the same thing with 2D. It's any tool, any medium. There's an execution factor. It's not merely because it's 2D or merely because it's CG. And he makes this argument in the video. And then he's trying to make this, like, he's like trying to make this point that, like, a CG is actually great, you guys, and kind of overreaching. He's overreaching with this point that, like, CG cars are just better at motion than 2D cars. And then just gives a couple examples of really bad 2D animation, which is like, yeah, I like that argument that he makes, that like people don't complain, except people do. People do also complain about bad 2D animation, but do they have the same phobia as CG? I get where he's coming from. I don't know. So there's something criticism to be said about this, but I will say, again, I like the breadth that he's talking about, like the number of titles that he's referencing, and the amount of different examples he's giving, and the way it kind of bounces from one to another. He's really on a rant like this. And I also really like, and I think he may have done this for his previous videos, I'm not watching every video he's putting out, but he may have done this for a Spy Family video, and I don't remember. But I really like that he was on camera for this, for like half of it, where he's delivering it again. Because I've talked about this with Joe's videos, that being on camera is kind of more, you're able to get more of what the person's saying or connect with it better somehow than voiceover. Of course, he has a kind of a mix of voiceover and being on camera. But I liked his preference, his presence on camera for this video, for sure. I thought it was really good. Yeah, I enjoyed the video. I thought it was fiery and had a lot of good points. A little like overreaching and sloppy in other places, but it is what it is. I'll take it. Totally not Mark. My massive $10,000 manga collection. Rare manga. Rare? Yeah, I guess. You know, when I was looking into it, there's certain things that he's I mean, he has some copies of old Jump from the 80s, which was kind of cool. I like the idea of collecting the magazines from this period of Dragon Ball, where it's like, oh, the Goku Vegeta fight, that's something that matters a lot to him. Collecting the volumes of that's pretty cool. I also liked that he gave personal stories about certain volumes. Like, I'm missing things here and there, like certain volumes and the Slam Dunk, etc. Also, that I liked the set. I really liked the set, and having the two cameras was cool. Being on camera, of course, is always appreciative. I think he has a very good on-camera presence. I feel like he should do it more, especially if like he's worried about his visuals. So there's a point that he makes about the Pokemon Adventures manga. So one of the, I guess the whole conceit of this, it's obviously a manga collection video, but the premise is that, like, you know, he's outgrowing his space for it, so he needs to move all of it. So he's like, while I'm doing that, I may as well show you what I got. And in the process, he has a lot of collected manga that he wants to make for a video, but he can't apparently decide which. So it's a lot of manga that he owns that he has not read or knows anything about. He owns all of Demon Slayer and all of Jujutsu Kaisen and I think all of Hero Academia, like most of Hero Academia. Doesn't see the anime for Hero Academia, but doesn't know anything about Jujutsu Kaisen or Demon Slayer, but owns the whole manga. You know, and I'm just like, yeah, you could just do that with your money, huh? Oh man, because he's living well, because he really takes his job seriously, and so seriously that there's a lot of manga here that he shows off that he's like, boy, I would love to make a video about this, but here's my excuse why I won't. Several of which, including all of URUSAWA's work. He's got all of 20th Century Boys, all of Pluto, all of Monster. He's read Pluto, wants to make videos on all three. He really thinks it's interesting, but doesn't think that they will make for like well-performing videos. That's just really disappointing. That's just so disappointing. And then it's like he says he doesn't have time to read them because it's his job now. He just doesn't read them for fun. I feel like if you read them, maybe you would have more of an incentive to make the video. You know? What was the one that he was like, I actually have more of an incentive to make a video on this one? Your Name. I loved that he had this person, he had actually collected several light novels and manga editions of Your Name. And a little bit of Silent Voice. I don't know why he put Silent Voice. There's other, I don't know. Weird choices here and there that's sporadic. But, I really like that he mentioned that, like, Your Name was really important to me. And so it's like, don't let me forget to make a video about Your Name. Just like, okay, I mean, Your Name will probably do okay. It'll probably do fine, especially if the channel your size. I feel like he could talk about a lot of these things, and I think his fans will come for it. I do think so. Maybe that's just my wishful thinking for sure. But, like, it's really discouraging seeing somebody like talking about this thing that he owns and that like he's paid money for, and he won't read because he can't make content about it. That's literally what he's saying. He's like, tell me what to make. I have all of Bakuman here. I don't think I'm gonna be able to make a video on it because it's not hot. So I can't read it for content. And I'm not going to read it for fun because I don't really read manga for fun anymore because it's my job. It's like, dude, what are we doing here? You know, it's sad. It's really sad. I don't know. It's really unfortunate. It's to me, it's like you have the platform now. What subs is he at? He's at 700K, right? Yeah, 775K. It's about where he's been for a while. I think he changed his background. It looks really great. He's got a Manscaped. He just has his Manscaped code on his banner. That's interesting. I love his banner otherwise, though. Like, what did... I don't know. It was like you have a platform now, and you have these what he's been doing lately has been just like compiling his other reviews of stuff. I don't know if they are I don't know if they're compilations or if he's actually doing some remastering and stuff. I have not gone in to look and try to figure it out. But like I'm pretty sure he's just compiling his older videos and repackaging them, and just has 240,000 views in 10 days on this Dragon Ball The Ultimate Review and 166 on this other thing. And I get there's other things where it's like there's certain videos that got claimed for this and that, and he's definitely like YouTuber, right? Where he's talking about like his experience with each of these videos. Like, I'm proud of that video. I'm okay with not re-uploading it, even though it has 3 million views and it got claimed at the very end or whatever. Like that's stuff that I appreciate his perspective and little inside baseball. I do like that he's being honest about those sorts of things. It could be very flaccid. Here's my manga, blah, 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 blah. And I mean, there's certain things when he's talking about, there were certain series where he's like, yeah, I have it. I don't have anything to say about it besides it's popular and I could make a video about it. I haven't read it. I hear it's good. That's it. That's it for like 4 or 5 different series. It's like, God, it's just weird, you know? The things he does have to say is really great. And you know what is another thing I really liked was towards the end, before he gets into One Piece, I think he saved One Piece for last. But he goes through a lot of miscellaneous books, the other books that he has, like things that really helped him with his writing and his perspective and his, you know, being a YouTube and his analysis, basically. And it's like, oh, this video was actually inspired by this book, etc. I think recommending those books was great. I kind of wish he went through all of them. Not like all of them extensively or anything. I'm not like that. But just like there was a lot in those piles that like I would have been really curious of, like, what's that? Oh, this is the thing. And just showing all of them. And maybe there's some intrigue in some of it. And you don't have to like describe. I feel like there was like oxygen was taken away in favor of these other books that, like, yeah, we know that those are the volumes for My Hero Academia. But then he's like, I haven't read it. Yeah, I could make a video on it. Like spending like 1 minute on that. Or, I don't know. There's certain things it's just like I would have liked to see certain little bits like that, I guess. What was the there's just other things that's kind of revealing about his process, right? With like you know, he won't talk about a series that's not licensed in English, even though the anime is licensed in English. You know, you could watch Gintama and Hajime no Ippo and review those series, but he's not an anime guy. Even though he's seen the anime for Parasite, but liked it, and then bought the manga and hasn't read it yet. And maybe I'll make a video on it. But I'm looking through it, it has kind of blocky. He's making a little judgment call on the manga that he hasn't read. not a big deal, obviously, but I don't know. There's certain things that it's like he has very specific. Oh my God, he said this thing, and I think I alluded to it towards the beginning, where it's like, maybe being on screen is a good idea, Mark. So like. He mentions with Pokemon Adventures, and yes, I cut myself off earlier. He says that he's kind of hesitant on making a video on it because there isn't any good anime equivalent material to show. Because it's not based on the, you know, Ash in that manga. There's no equivalent footage of that to show. And manga is boring to look at. Or very editing intensive for his editor, which is true. Manga's a lot. Manga's hard, and I made this observation in a previous video I talked about with him, and it says very point, you know, says it point blank there. It's like, yeah, I even though he's endorsing and talking about the context of the manga and not talking about the anime, which is a different thing. It's an adaptation. It's very different. And yet he's showing the anime that he didn't watch, you know, or maybe he did in certain places or whatever. I don't know. But like, that's so frustrating that he is hesitant on talking about Pokemon Adventures manga because it doesn't have an anime. Even though you don't watch the anime, it's because of the way that it would have to be edited. Come on. It'd be like, maybe some face cam. I don't know. Maybe some face cam could work. But there are ways to edit a manga video that is editing and economic. That's not like putting the manga panel and panning it up like this, or cutting out a bunch of shit. I think there is ways to do it. I think Editor San is very creative. The AMV sections he's putting in, which were you getting those AMVs from the things that you're using as interludes? Were you getting them from previous videos that you made, recycling those, or did you make them specific for this video? Maybe some, maybe not. Maybe not the Berserk one. The Berserk one went very hard. The Attack on Titan one went very hard. But you have massive reviews of that one. You have a massive review of the Berserk one, a massive one of the Attack on Titan one. I didn't go and check, but probably. Not a flaw in it. You can use, you made it, so fuck it, right? But it's something I noticed, especially giving the context I had of like, oh, lately you've been just re-uploading compilations of your previous videos, which like I'm probably gonna do with my Naruto video anyway. Like, who am I to fucking complain about that? I'm not complaining. It's just transparent, it's just obvious to me. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm actually mistaken. Maybe I'm just making an unfair assumption. But it's something I notice, I guess, as someone who makes videos and watches a lot. Not a big deal. But it's just like, anybody, ultimately it's like as many problems as I'm having, or just like things that bug me, and it's just like kind of depressing the way he's talking about some of these things. Yeah, I did like the video ultimately. I think he has really good on-screen presence. I wish he had more on-screen presence. Wish he did more on-screen, actually. I think he does really well. I like the set a lot. I really liked how it kind of felt very of the moment, where he's like, oh, this is more intense, physically intensive than I was expecting. And he does feel like he's talking off the cuff, which is cool. I like that. I actually like that. And there's a lot of variety to it because he's talking about a lot of different things. I don't know. And the counter was kind of fun of like how many volumes of something does he have. It's like, not like I see all of it, but because it's all very off frame or whatever. It's placed in such a way that's aesthetic or whatever. But yeah. Take it or leave it, I guess. But I enjoyed the video though. I did check out an episode of the Newtypes podcast with CBF, Lone Crit, and Kaiser. But this one they're talking about daughters of I'm sure I haven't seen it. And Kotaro Lives Alone, which was like an interesting pairing, just kind of two very different shows. I'm sure I don't think they do much in the way of contrast, really. They just kind of talk about the two of them separately. Very earnestly, too. I really liked the maturity that they brought to discuss, like the kind of nuanced discussion, talking about Rin specifically. And also the emphaticness of talking about Kotaro and how actually good it is. I really like the intro. They always tell me that it's like, hey, check out the intro. There's some fun stuff, and I have to say it's surprising, and it's a vibe that I don't know. I've not been an avid listener. I've been watching every episode, and I can't remember if they did this in previous ones, so I apologize if they have. But like the thing that really stuck out to me was the music choice. I love the feel of it. I really do. Like the cityscape with the rain, and then like the very peaceful jazz music. Walking up to the cafe, and you're kind of in media res, like you're watching a scene of something. It's very acted, which is so different for a podcast, I think, and it's something that I've kind of thought about for Pissed Pirates as well. But I'm too like, I don't know. I have a certain ego, I guess, that like I couldn't bring myself to do something like that, or at least commit to it in that way. But I like that they kind of roll along with it. And of course there's that, they have a reference, an inside joke, and which is funny, but that Lo could explain to me. But it is cute. I really like it. But then I think that the editing is very precise with the audio, that there's trying to make it very much of a delineated conversation. I don't know if that makes sense. Conversation, very precise with cutting in places and stuff. Although there's one or two like there may have been one place where I could hear you that like you repeated yourself, like you like and you repeat it, like you stumble a bit there. I can't do that for digest because it's a on-screen thing, and I don't want too many like video jumps and stuff, and also I don't want to be here forever, like 5 hours trying to like articulate my thoughts in a concise way. You can obviously do that because it's just audio, and you can let me try that again or stuff like that. But I think there was one that you left in. And there's also other things. I couldn't give you the precise location, but I'm just like, I can tell that this audio is being very precisely edited. So it's weird that you left that in there, or there was something where it was like, you could have switched that around. Oh, it was when Lone Crit was like, I think we should wrap up. And then you keep going. I think it was CBF or Kaiser. It just kind of has another thought, and they keep going for another 20-30 seconds or something. And it's sort of, it's like, okay, that's enough, and it's like still going. It's an awkward moment in the video itself, and it's like you don't have to put that. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's not a big deal or whatever. Obviously not a deal breaker or something. But that's something I observed where it was just so like, it seems that the audio is being taken care of a lot, which I like. It also helps with like the precise delivery. It really feels like the three of you are trying your best to give as much insightful commentary and like as possible. It doesn't feel fluffy or just kind of like a podcast, which is just sort of, it's just vibes. It's okay if there's like missing whatever and trails off and whatever. It feels very like packed, which is unique for a podcast, I think. And it's also like a unique length because it's not like super short, like 20 minutes or something that's like only the best sort of stuff, but it's not like an hour, and so it's not like it's like a real set it and forget it, like listen for a while type of podcast either. Not to mention all the I don't know, all the stuff with the visuals, at least towards the beginning. It was interesting that like you have these ideas for skits like towards the end with the drink and stuff, which is funny, and I think it was well acted. But it was interesting. I guess it's like, okay, what would we put there? But it was interesting that like that there wasn't any visual component to that ending, which is like fine. It's like, how do you do that? I get it. With given the limitations of resources that you have and not killing yourselves over it. But I don't know. It would have been something to, because especially if it's something acted, like there's something going on beyond the context of talking about the show and beyond the context of this podcast. I feel like if some visual component was happening on, I feel like that could, not like it's a necessary thing. I was just like, I'm just thinking about it. I did enjoy the podcast for sure. It's a comfy listen. I can't really speak on the content itself as usual because I've not seen Rin or Kotaro, so those particular discussions kind of flew over my head a lot at the time. But it's just nice hearing the voices. I think it's just the aesthetic, I guess, especially the music. I think the music really carries. I think it's a really great choice. I like the vibes and atmosphere a lot. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's a nice time. The Last Days of Termite Terrace from The Merry History of Louis Tunes, KaiserBeamz. I love these videos from him. They're kind of the only thing it's so rude for me to say. It's hard for me to stomach his anime videos. They're very similar, and I can't get into them for whatever reason. I usually have something that kind of irks me about him. But I think I've said it every time that he's uploaded one of these. I think I try to champion this series every time a new episode comes out because I look forward to it, and I'm so happy there's one more. They've always been so fascinating because I never looked into them. Obviously, I've never looked into these. It's also like makes sense. You look at the view counts of his other videos. Yeah, and the Looney Tunes ones are consistently over 100K, which like they absolutely deserve. They're so well researched, so thorough, so interesting. So well edited too in terms of the visuals he's showing. It's so good. It's definitive like history of Looney Tunes stuff. I think I may have compared it to Defunct Land before. But that's like the tier I'm talking about, where it's just so thorough, interesting, consistently engaging. Fantastic. No notes. I love this shit. It's so good. A big fan. Yeah. Yeah, IanWaffles. What I love about Kingdom Hearts 2 is, I really like, I've talked about it, I shouted on that a little bit before, but I did watch this video very early before when he had made it, and then he recently released it this month. So it's been a while since I watched it, so I apologize if I'm not going to have too many specifics or anything. But I really do like how positive and uplifting this is, how thoughtful and going through the whole story in that way. And it is very accessible for someone who's never seen Kingdom Hearts. I like the AMV portions for sure. I think a personal anecdote he shared with me that if you don't mind me sharing here, I like that he said that this started as a response and kind of a defense video and kind of being a little more offensive and toxic, almost not toxic in a way, but like, trying to be more of like defense video, responding to something toxic. But he's like, no, you know what, I'm not going to dwell on it. Maybe I'm misconstruing your point, but like, I'm not going to dwell on that. I'm going to make something I like, and it's going to show you, like, kind of more embrace the love aspect of it. Big fan. That's how you do it. That's my guiding principle for me personally as well. So really appreciated that. Yeah, I enjoyed the video a lot. I hope you guys check it out. It's fun. The two-piece! The two-piece isn't real! Appreciated this. Best Guy Ever, two-piece conspiracy. And he interviews people from TCP Scans and One Pace. Just giving them their thoughts about translation and like fan accumulation, co-op, embracing. I don't know the word for it. The conceit of this video is over one translation, and it's the Viz official translation is implying one thing, and TCB goes with something else and a little more nuanced and very interesting. I appreciated that Best Guy Ever was able to look at it through all sides, interview the people. He really broadened the scope to talk about One Pace as well, and also talk about some other things. It's like, here's my experience with this guy, Greg, was it, or Greg or Paul? I don't remember. His observation is like, look, I really liked that actually. But it was sort of the ruminations about like manga in general and people's interpretations and translation things and misinformation and various rumors and conspiracy, and dealing with it in the context of One Piece, I think was very, very interesting and insightful. I think he came from a good place with it this time. I think I may have talked about it. A previous video was similar to this, where it felt a little more saltier, condescending, and abrasive, I guess, from Nate. And Nate can be very abrasive, I think. But like, I think he came for this very tactfully. Still has that biting edge. Still has that like cut. He's really going after some people. But in a way that I felt was like accessible and fair and again, tactful, I guess, is really the word I'd want to use for it. I like the kind of put money in his mouth that said has this bet of like what the it's like if we end the story and it turns out that this is what it meant, I will eat my entire ass, or whatever he puts up a better, I forget the name of, it was a while when I watched. I think I watched it when it came out. But like, that was fun. It's can't get over the thumbnail. That's so funny. I'm a big fan of this. But I just really enjoyed the video. I think it was very thorough, and I enjoy these longer, doesn't have to worry about the editing intensive part. That was neat. As much as it's like, I wish it was more like that, but like, I get it. It really is this sort of this what Trixie used to do with her SAO video, the old SAO video, which is just over that game footage. It blows up. It doesn't matter, So there's still the plenty of the visuals that need to be there are there. So yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I like the video a lot. It was good. I'm finally talking about a Nux Taku video again. And it's because he doesn't, he's very much in the VTuber scene and does other stuff, and it's fine. But And I think he's done other anime stuff in other places, but yeah, it's fine. But of course, I was interested in this one, especially because there were some clips that kind of came out of this that was like kind of newsworthy almost. Like I literally saw a comic book CBR article come out of this because there was it's kind of newsworthy almost. Whereas it's any nugget of the One Piece live action. Confronted one Netflix One Piece producer with terrible anime adaptations. And yeah, he's talking to Mark, I believe is his name, who seems very online and very much an anime fan. Got his Naruto pint glass and other stuff. And the things he was saying where it's like, okay, yeah, you've seen it. Okay, cool. And he's certainly a fan for sure. Although I wish they talked more about One Piece. I just wish it was more about One Piece, man. It's just, what can I say? I wish. And I liked the banter. I think they have very good chemistry with each other, Nux and Mark. I should make sure that's his name. It's Matt. I'm an idiot. Matt Owens. Fuck me. Shit. But I've heard of him for sure. Like, I was seeing him with talking with Roger's base a lot, and I think Roger actually visited the South Africa and at the set, which is impressive. But like, yeah, Matt's very online, and it's very knowledgeable, I think, and like in this sphere. But I really liked his tact with not going so hard on his fellow Netflix projects because like I don't want to get fucking fired. Or get any major trouble. And obviously you can't leak anything like major. I understand that. I think the approach that Nux took here of talking about why certain Netflix stuff didn't work for one reason or another is good on paper. And I mean, I think that it was ultimately kind of constructive. And I think like, especially the very first thing they talk about obviously is Ed from the Bebop live action. And I think Matt has the correct take, which is like, God, I feel bad for that actress. Didn't deserve that. And it really is sort of a approach thing. When I was watching the clip again, I did not watch the live action. And to be honest, I was avoiding most of the clips because, yeah, it's kind of cringe. But I kind of felt it was more cringe of how many people were dunking on it. It was a really uncomfortable time. I just really hated it. But like, I really watched it in full in this particular context. And you know what? They didn't mention this, but something that I think that kind of doesn't work about it that I noticed was that like Ed is kind of giving like the fact that Ed is giving Spike a mission, like I have a bounty for you. Is that what has Ed ever done that? It's like, it's just sort of the prospect and the framing that you put Ed in that like, and I honestly like, I think the eccentricities make sense. It just makes sense. Like, that is Ed, and they don't disagree with that. And it's like, but it doesn't translate. And it's like, no, I think it's because you just need, what's the first introduction to Ed in the show? It's been a while since I've watched it, but like, I don't think it's this. Was it this? Was this the first? Like, cause you notice every time someone brings this scene up, they never compare it to the anime counterpart, because I don't think there is one. And I so it's like, I don't know. I think it's just the first impressions, and unfortunately, we will never get more impressions than this. It's fuck, which is really, really unfortunate. But like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like there could be more. There could be something to the approach. I think it's just the fact that they were like, I have a mission for you, and Spike, like, I don't know, the tact and the framing and I don't know, the scene was weird. Just the scene was weird, I just don't feel like that's what Ed would do. I don't know. Anyway, but what's weird is they put the Kakegurui live action on the thumbnail, but they don't react to it at all. And then like, the reason it's an hour is that it's really just his entire conversation with Matt, which is fun and nice, but like it goes off in so many different directions, and they just talk about like dubs, And it's like, why are we talking about dubs? Like, I get it, anime adaptations, but like, what does that have to do with the like? It makes sense for the One Piece live action guy to kind of comment and talk about and have him understand. Not that he doesn't understand. Like you should understand this. Like he already knows. He's seen these. He's an anime fan. But like those made sense, and him talking about certain like Dragon Ball Evolution or the Fullmetal Alchemist live action. Like I get those, but like they start talking about dubs, and like there was a long Digimon conversation, which is interesting, but it's like, what does this have to do with what we're here for? I would much rather you listen to you talk about whatever you can of the One Piece live action, which I understand. And there was a good chunk of that because they're talking about, it's like, yeah, we can't do these certain things, and so we have to find a different way. And like I don't know, there were certain like the clips that kind of went out from this, which is like, we're making our Sanji more of a flirt than a simp, and then look out for a lot of Easter eggs. We're packing a lot in there because of how much we know now about the One Piece world, versus like when it was being written at the time. There's a lot more we can do, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds exciting. But it's sort of just like that was what the stuff I wanted, and it's just more fluff, I guess, of other stuff, and it's fine. It's fine. It's comfy. I watched the whole thing. I wasn't like impatient getting to certain things, but it was weird that they're just reacting to a Ghost Stories clip, and it felt like Nux was just kind of showing him funny clips. It's like, oh, you haven't seen that, like this funny thing from GX or whatever, and there's some fun. It's fun. I'm not saying it's bad content or something like that. I think it's all great. I think it's a bop for sure, as Nux says at the beginning. He's like, this turned out really well. I agree with that. I just say, it's certain. It's like I feel like I was left wanting more by the end of it. Maybe he'll have Matt on again if you like, just like get certain amount of likes or whatever. I don't know, but yeah, I did enjoy it. It's just like a little disappointing in the way the trajectory and how much they felt. It's like it's not an hour worth of like extremely like insightful It's more like a lot of different side things, and it's like, okay. But yeah, I did like it though. Bowl of Lentils had a documentary on the history of Leaf, pioneer of the visual novel genre. This is good shit. It's very good. It's so concise, no fluff. Like you can really get the sense of the value in what he's talking about. And he's not like emphasizing it in a certain other video that I will talk about in a second. Doesn't really repeat himself that much. Has a lot of footage to show in terms of like a lot of he's not reusing a lot of stuff, it seems to me, and really gets you to understand that they're the pioneer of it. He's not exaggerating. I think if anything, he's underselling this. They literally invented the term. They literally were the ones that first coined the word visual novel, and he explains exactly where that came from, which is like so insightful and additive and interesting. And then going really into like the value of these particular games in the broader context of the games industry at the time, and so many like it's mostly on the Japanese side. He's not really talking about any reception in the West because it seems very minimal. But like I was already thinking about, and if you follow me with the encyclopedia, right? I've been doing the encyclopedia streams, and one of the things that we notice is they really don't have any sympathy or respect for this genre of games at all. It's like based on a porn game, right? And there are erotic scenes in these things, and that's out of contractual obligation. That's literally like what was being sold, and so it's like they literally forced that on them, but they worked around it. But then there was actually an interesting case in this one where later on, a large subset of their group really appreciates those erotic scenes or whatever, and so they actually released a clean. So what usually happens is there's the porn version, and then when it gets ported to consoles, they take all that stuff out. And so in this instance, it was a sequel to it was Two Heart 2, and they released the main game without any of the erotic stuff in the home console release first, and then later on, and it kind of recouped their costs once they released the erotic version on, I guess, PC or whatever. And then, charting their rise and really giving you a sense of their importance in the grand scheme of things on the Japanese side, which is, of course, again, something that like very few of us have ever really experienced, have looked into and studied, of course, or have ever really appreciated. Like what I was talking about with the encyclopedia, right? They just don't have any respect for this thing. I don't, and I'd have to look. I don't think I read their article on Two Heart's anime. But Two Heart is like such a huge deal in the grand scheme of things. Oh yeah, the really big thing was that like these guys shortly after Two Heart released the software they used, or a version of it basically, to kind of allow people to make their own visual novels. So like literally the software that like, that most like all those fan things, but it was like Type Moon, I think, used a version of it at some point, or like kind of like got their early start that eventually became the Fate series. Or I think it was something where like Tsukihime in particular adopted the visual, coined it the language of calling it a visual novel, which at that time only Leaf was doing. Like, and still even today, and at least in the Japanese side, they don't call most of these visual novels. They call them something kind of more generic or general term, like some adventure game or whatever. But visual novel is like a big coinage, at least in the West, and people just think that is the term, and they don't know where it comes from, and it comes from this, like dead, like not even like speculative, like oh probably, like no, definitely, like it's bar none, really impressive. But then what was it? Yeah, the fact that it was like there's connections to Type Moon, and there's connections to Ryukishi 07, the author of Higurashi, etc. Like his first starts was in the doujinshi market with Two Heart and everything. I sneezed. Yeah, that is impressive. It's impressive, the tendrils and the influence that this has. And he charts their entire history basically, because they pretty much went dormant after a while. Well, they exist technically, but they're not like a very active studio in the same way. And their modicum of success wasn't like as insanely popular, especially not in the West. I've heard of Two Heart, and honestly, like I've been online enough where it's like I've seen these designs. That this looks kind of familiar, even though I'm not remotely invested in the visual novel, dating sim, high school romance type of stuff anyway. Not like I'm against it or whatever, but like I've seen it around, and it's like wow, just getting the value and importance of those things, and as well as they were also the people behind White Album and White Album 2, and learning about that backstory, kind of why it's so beloved and kind of as a swan song of sorts. I really appreciate that he mostly focuses on the visual novel, because I had only ever heard of the anime, especially specifically for White Album 2. So that was very interesting, as well as Utawa Remono, something like that. Yeah, they're the guys behind that as well. Yeah, and also the downfall, sort of, not really downfall, but it's like the fan reception and the drama that was being stirred up, and I guess they were very close knit with their fans based on their games. I think Comic Party is another example, because they're really like selling to that particular audience who's very devoted to it. So when they kind of turn on their the fans turn on them basically with accusations of plagiarism and really tragic stuff with one of the authors passing away very, very early, which is really sad. Yeah, it was just very interesting, followable all the way through. I was worried at first, because it's like he's showing a lot of stuff that I've never seen before. I'm not remotely invested in the PC visual novel, like these kinds of Japanese games. I know very little, but he really, I think maybe 5 minutes when he starts to talk about like the very origin point, I think is when you can start really hooking in and follow it, and it's very accessible even as a complete outsider. And then following it all the way through, it's like doesn't feel like an hour. It's very impressive. I really like this video. It was very cool. Very cool. Raymona. I'm not gonna spend too much time on this one, because it's deja vu. Got me again. God damn it! And it's more like the more this happens, the more I'm sick of it. So okay. The Secret Stories of Saint Seiya Part 1: Tales of the Lost. Hour and a half. Doesn't start the video until 8 minutes in. Not that I like the intro that she makes, the little animated intro. I said, this is literally almost probably word for word, bar for bar, the same critiques I would have for part 1 of Sailor Moon, which I did talk about already. Like, it's a very overly long intro. There's several sections. It's broken up into like part 1, part 2, part 12, whatever. So like there was more than one section where start to finish, like, what was the point of that? What was like the arc, and like why is it broken up in like that, in that way? Well, what did I gain from that? Because she repeats herself so much. There's so much preamble. There's so much like build up and like get to it. It's so padded out. There's very little of anything that you're gonna get that's like new and value and additive, I think. The interview part, the one interview she gets in here, great, an oasis. And that's the best stuff. Always is when she's talking about, even though this person had very little to do with the thing that she's trying to find, and ultimately didn't lead to any clues or anything. Literally didn't even lead to any clues. There's like literally more than half the video. I'd say even like up to the 6-8, like 3/4 mark, or even more, like even further, like 80% of the way there, that she finally is like, oh, why don't I just look at the pilot and try to find the cast members? She could identify 3 of them, can't get an interview with any of them, and then at the very end, so the entire video, and I'm going to spoil this for you. I'm sorry. I don't think you should watch this. I don't. So like, it was the fucking, so much of this was talking about Saint Seiya and like the West's reception, and I don't think her reasons are fully correct. I don't think they track or make consistency, because she's talking about like it's too late, like if this was released too late in the 2003 is what we're talking about when Saint Seiya came to the West. Dragon Ball was 01, right? Was it? What year did Dragon Ball come out in the West? Wasn't it like late 90s? Then 92, and not even 92, fucking 99, 2000, like, I'm pretty sure at least Funimation stuff is from 2001, at least the original Dragon Ball one, right? But there's a couple of ones kind of think earlier on. I'm not fully aware of the history of it, but like, that doesn't make sense. I think I tried Googling like when did it come out in Latin America, because surely it didn't come out in 86. Did it come? Did Saint Seiya get brought over to these Latin countries in Europe and everywhere else like early enough? Like 86, 87, 88? Did it go? Was it that early where it's like, oh, it's in time? Because that doesn't make any sense, right? Like Dragon Ball, and I don't know. That was weird to me. That was very weird. But it's more just the fact that, like, yeah, the designs are older. Like, designs very much look like the 70s, and Americans are way more averse to things that look old. Sorry, And I think Justin Sudeikis also has a good explanation. His rationale of, like, it's a Sentai-based thing, although it's not Sentai. It was kind of awkward because it felt like both of them hadn't watched the show. Because, like, Justin, at least, it was like, oh, there's this team dynamic, and there's like Super Sentai, and yeah, Power Rangers, but it's kind of an exception. Except, like, if you watch Saint Seiya, they're friends. It's the shonen thing, right? It's the same thing with, like, it's the squad. Yeah, they are a group, but they never fight together. They hardly ever fight together, actually. It usually doesn't work when they fight together. And then they have to, like, oh, I'll take this guy, you go on ahead, I'll take care of him. And then it's a one-on-one fight, which, like, it's usually kind of a thing. I suspect it's kind of makes it easier for the author, right? Because if you try to have, like, multiple characters trying to fight, so it becomes kind of complex, right? At least that's my perspective and take on it. But, like, if you watch Saint Seiya, actually watch it, it's mostly one-on-one fights, and it's weird to call it a Sentai type thing. And that was just what we're saying. But I don't feel like Raymona watched it either. I think she watched a couple episodes from the dub, and then like, what? She's just kind of watching it as an outsider. I don't feel like she watched the whole show. I'm not saying you need to watch the whole show to, you know, whatever. But like, it was so obvious that you're talking about it as an outsider and you're gassing it up as this important thing. But you really are, it's like you're in an arm's distance away from talking about what really makes this show work. And there was something she mentioned that like the Deke dub, and granted, like this stuff is, I didn't know about like the actual timing and when these things were released and the actual release of Saint Seiya in the West, right? I knew it failed multiple times, not just the times that she's talking about, because like, it's interesting. Like, yeah, that initial launch isn't the strongest, sure, but like they've tried multiple times after that and it still doesn't work, you know? Interesting. I wonder if there's something to that. I don't know. Not about the not judging quality or whatever. I like Saint Seiya, but there's something she mentioned where the initial run of the Deke dub only made it up to episode 40. Only not even episode 40, because like 35 was kind of released on DVD and that's it. And then ADV tried again and it was like uncut, but they didn't even make it to 70. Like they did 60 episodes. Now it's very interesting that she's mentioning these episode titles, but she's not thinking about what's happening in the story. It's actually very significant that Deke stops at 40, because they don't even get to the best part of the show. They don't get to Sanctuary then. I'm pretty sure Sanctuary starts at like 45, right? 40, 45? It's around that mark. That stretch from 40 or so to 75-ish, like, it's been a while since I watched it. That chunk, Sanctuary arc, is the best part of the show. Is what makes it popular. Is like probably why when like you show it in Latin America, of course it popped off. That's the best part. But when you say that like the Deke dub is bad and it cuts things, of course not giving a single fucking example. Not one example. Not a single time. Are you kidding me? One? Not one? You showed like, oh, they do different blood, like a different colored blood or something. Like, okay. And like, sure, they cut some stuff and like, okay. Sure, that's not great. But like, clearly, I think that the more striking omission, I think Raymona realizes, because I don't think she watched it, the first 40 episodes are not the most interesting part of the show, because it's very like semi-episodic. It's very much like there's a lot of different things going on. They're kind of finding their footing, and then there's this really good arc in like 45 to 75. And I could be wrong about the I'm pretty sure it's around that range. That's the best part of the show, and they don't even get to it. Of course it failed. I think there's something to be said about that. But her only 3 reasons for why it didn't work in the West is Deke dub, confusion of dubs, because they put out multiple dubs and kid that goes to a Hollywood video is going to get confused. I don't know. If the kid really wanted to watch it, I think he would take it. I'd be like, yeah, sure. You know, it's like, oh, I don't know what's different. And I don't know, maybe they find that interesting. I don't know. But like, that's such a weak reason, I think. I think there's just more to it that like you could go into, watch the show. No, it's so obvious that you're standing at it from this distance and talking about how good it is. It's like, come on. It's like, you know, it's so annoying. And then like, I like that she went on Twitter and asked Latin America why you enjoy this show so much and what it means to you. I think that's great. Have that. But it's sort of just, it felt very disingenuous, I think, the way that she was handling this. And look, again, the actual meat of like finding this 15-minute pilot for this failed Knights of the Zodiac thing that Kurumada, she tried to reach out to Kurumada, by the way, which is just so funny. It's just like, I tried, I can't even come close. It's like, yeah, no shit, Jesus Christ, it's a fucking mangaka, a popular one at that. Anyway, but like, it's nothing for like 90 minutes. That's the whole video. But like, it's so much preamble, so much spinning the wheels, so much dead ends leading to absolutely nothing that you've tried. It's like, I reached out on Twitter and I found some new leads, and then but then it's like, oh, you know, I did all this research and everything. End of the video, like last 2 minutes, she's like, oh yeah, I was watching this whole video, be like, just watch, it's gonna be in the fucking Library of Congress again. And she wants to make this entire huge documentary about it, but like, you know, there's no intrigue like her last one. She wants to replicate the last one that was so successful for her, that like, but it's gonna be in the Library of Congress again. And so she's like, do you ever, if you've ever seen, like, there's so much, like, not, just say the thing, you know what I mean? It's just, I don't know, it's not what I'm into. Not what I'm into, I will say. But the 2 minutes, she's like, you remember the Library of Congress? I got this DVD that, like, oh, what is this? It's a little production materials or something. You put it in, and it's something we've never seen before. And she doesn't give any explanation. End of part 1. It's this completely new discovery. The actual additive part that's, like, really good. And, of course, all of the stuff is going to be in part 2. Where she finds out what this thing is, learns more about it, gets an interview. Like, of course part 2 is going to be more valuable. And it's like, okay. You're just getting dragged along for 90 minutes. You don't have to watch it. There's really nothing that additive to it, I don't think. It's flashy. It's, you know, fine on a moment-to-moment basis. It's just not no. I'm just very annoyed by it. Again, I like the interview that she makes with the one person that she was able to get in contact with. That was very interesting. And hearing about different, like, we were thinking about Dragon Ball Project, and he was playing with certain stuff with, like, would this work in the West? And, you know. And I agree, it's like, it could change the trajectory for better or for worse. If any of these projects actually made it across, well, how would that change it? You know, or tantamount or whatever. I think it could change the practices. I don't know. You never know, really. Although I do think she was exaggerating with how impactful it was, because the anime industry already by 2003 was already well on its way of like this industry bubble. Because once Pokemon hits, it were off to the races, and it's a very different market at that point. It's not like the emergence of anime in the West. That was more in like the 80s and 90s. You know, we're already kind of past that point by the 2000s with Pokemon and everything. But yeah, no, I didn't really explain what she found. It's a new thing because she doesn't explain what it is. She doesn't say it. She literally just puts this. She's like, I found this DVD that I sent from the Library of Congress, and then I put it in, and then she just shows it. I don't know what it is. It's a 90s style cartoon adaptation of Saint Seiya. And it has the Gold Saints, all of the Gold Saints, and they're designed very similarly. But it's on the thumbnail too. It's just like a 90s like Street Fighter style, or Double Dragon style, kind of like that sort of art style. So kind of like Americanized of Kurumada's designs, which at least Justin was arguing that those designs probably was one of the reasons it didn't take off in the West. Because it's very stylized and like kind of old looking from the 70s, like very old shoujo type of thing, which the United States is not necessarily into. Interesting, because that's a cool approach actually. What if you just made Saint Seiya without Kurumada's designs? Would it have taken off in the West? That's real. That's a prospect I've never thought of before. Right, where you suck the anime styling out of a story, but then keep the story. What if you just did Saint Seiya, but it was with American designs? I don't know. It might have done better. I don't know. It's a really good story. It's really good action, really good concept, you know, and everything. But that's kind of blasphemous, right? Taking a mangaka's style out of it. And I think that, you know, there's something very synonymous with his like very Bishojo, Bishonen, I think Bishonen's really the word for it. Also, God, she was talking about magical boys, so like multiple times, referring to Saint Seiya's magical boys. It's like, oh, stop! Oh, it's like a male version of Sailor Moon. It's like, no, God, stop. Whatever. But yeah, I couldn't with this fucking bit. Of course, she lands it at the very end where it's like, interesting, actual additive value content in credits. Doesn't even say anything. To be continued part 2. All right, but at least she showed the whole teaser. It wasn't like one little clip or something. At least she actually showed the whole commercial that she found, which was appreciative. Again, I really don't know why she's bothered with the whole fucking thing. I don't know. It's annoying. I was thinking about it. Where it was just like, I don't think this is all that professional, to be honest with you. Like, if she's calling this documentary, and maybe she wants to do this in a very professional, like, bigger scale, perhaps, but she's just a YouTuber at this point. Maybe this is her foot in the door or something. I think there's some YouTubers who genuinely want that, right? I think Defunctland has those vibes, right? Where he's like, I'm sick of being called a YouTuber. He wants to be known as a filmmaker and documentarian. And it's like, cool. That is cool. But there's definitely a lot of things that you are taking for granted making a YouTube video. A lot of things. You've no idea the amount of like clearance and rigmarole and official stuff, not to mention like quality checking, right? There's so much you have that he's taking, that all of us are taking for granted when making these videos, which is great, which is fine. I like it. I like the freedom, but like the big time, the big league, the actual serious stuff, it's a lot more different than you might realize. And this is something to consider. But like at the very least, there was a point where I was thinking of downloading this video and like seeing how much I can trim. And just be like, cut that, because you're repeating yourself so often. You're just spinning the wheels without really any forward. There's so many dead ends that don't matter, that don't affect the story at all. Yet, maybe they do later. Maybe they do in part 2. Right? But it's frustrating for a viewer, for me at least. As the viewer being myself. That it's just like, that didn't go anywhere. Why did we spend so much time on that? What does this have to do with what you're talking about? What? Oh, it's not to mention all like the stock footage that she's showing of like, it's so frustrating it did in the West, and it's like a businessman going like this, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'm above using stock footage or something. I kind of am. I don't know, but yeah, I was frustrated with this vid. I don't think you should check it out. I think you should just wait for part 2. Skip to the end to check out this fucking deek ass animated like commercial, like the opening, and it's like, what the fuck? Holy shit! Like they were dead ass gonna like skip to Sanctuary, I think, or I don't know. It was like, whoa, that's cool, but like the whole rest of it, you can wait. I think you can wait. Trash Taste. We drove 3,274 kilometers across all of Japan. Another Trash Taste special. They went from the southern tip, the southernmost point of Japan, all the way to the northernmost point of Japan in 8-9 days. They lost a day. I liked being transparent about that. Like, oh, Connor hurt his leg doing this activity. So once that luckily we're here and the journey can continue, etc. Good, because it was like there's some stuff especially early on, that's like the challenge of the winner gets to stay in a 5-star hotel, and the loser, it was one loser, but they made it 2 losers, and that was really funny. Where like Joey kind of drags Scar down with him to stay at this manga cafe, and it turns out actually the kind of manga cafe had more interesting stuff to do, and they actually spent more time video wise to show there than like the 5-star hotel that Connor had some issues with. And that was funny. I was smiling a lot from this vid because it was just like a lot of fun time with the boys. It is an hour. It is like podcast length, so there is that vibe of like it is kind of like a podcast almost. especially the way that there's a lot of banter in the car, and they cut a lot of it out, of course, because I guess that's the thing that they spent a lot of time on. And perhaps what took the longest, what the reason this took so long to make, perhaps was just how much footage they had to go through. That like it's like how much is this valuable, of what should be put in, etc. It was interesting that the challenges were set up by their producers, and they didn't know what the challenges were even before they got there. They had no idea. I think the surprise was a factor that could have been cool. I think ultimately the three of them aren't. I don't think the three of them are the kind of content creators or the kind of people that react in an interesting way to being like. I think their reactions were very neutral, or not like as like sensational as you would hope it to be, to keep it a surprise. Whether it was a surprise or not kind of didn't matter ultimately, based on their reactions to it. I guess maybe they could have prepared it, I don't know, but like I think they were said that the way they reacted to things, I don't think the surprise was all that much of a factor. Besides, I guess the one moment that does work in the special was it's a little cryptic where Joey wins a challenge and gets a tissue box, and he's like, what the heck is this for? And they're like, we have to do the, you know, they have this very like, I mean, you know, Gart and Connor are British, so they have a very condescending like, wait, fucking, you know, they have a very like, they don't have a very American sensibility to it. I think if it was like a Mr. Beast challenge, right, they'd be like, what? But they're not really that, they're not like that, which is good. I don't want them to be like that. I just think it's like, that's not quite what they, you know, but maybe that's good for the viewer, because the viewer has no idea what the challenge is going to be. But then that wouldn't have made a difference. You just don't tell the viewer then. But maybe maybe they know. I don't know. But I guess like what I was saying is just like, I felt like that aspect didn't quite work for me. But I do like that like the challenges themselves really, really good. I really liked there was a variety to it. It was fortunate. It just kind of is what it is with these things. But like I liked that there was a pretty even balance of, you know, Garnt winning, Joey winning, and Connor winning. I liked that, and it felt very natural. Maybe it may have not been natural in some places, perhaps, but it worked out. I love Chris Broad's feature in the video. So funny. He's I low key the way that he was the one kind of issuing this challenge and being the judge for this snowman contest. I think that was actually the most entertaining part of the video, and I think it's the most replayed actually, or at least the results of the challenge was the most replayed. And it's just like, it's so funny because he is the most British out of all of them, and so he has like the most like bitter, condescending, judgmental, like, but in a way that's like fun, you know, and kind of like cheeky, in the way that like Simon Cowell is like fun to hate or whatever. I don't know. Not that he's Simon Cowell. I don't know. it's just like the banter was really funny, and yeah, he just had the most on-screen presence or whatever. They had that guy, I forgot, I'm so sorry I don't know his name. He actually made a video of his experience with Trash Taste. He made his own vlog, and he was helped by like part cameraman and stuff. But like he was involved in kind of issuing some of the challenges and stuff. Maybe he would have had more of a presence, and it felt like very deliberately almost that. I think maybe I did get the vibe that I knew he was there. I could tell he was there, and on the trip with them, but doesn't get that much in the way of like talking, you know, unless it's like necessary or you can't cut it or whatever. I don't know how much banter he had overall with the boys, which is like they're all part of Geeks Plus, right? But it's sort of like, I don't know, man. It washed my hands of it kind of deal. Like I liked him being in the video. It was just sort of obvious in the way it's edited that it was just like they clearly are trying to minimize his presence because it's supposed to be just three boys. You know what I mean? And I felt like that was obvious, and that made it distracting to me personally. Again, I don't think the solution is don't have him in there or something. I just felt it was just like there's something about the edit or whatever that was just sort of like, huh, okay. And it's like I was like, I see what's going on almost. I don't know. That's just for me personally, I guess. again, it didn't distract or take away from the video or anything. You know what was the best, actually? It was a spontaneous. It sounded like it was spontaneous. They found this like recreation site with the Easter Island heads and the Buddha and Stonehenge. That was the best part of the video, even more than the other challenges. The challenges were fun and engaging and kept my attention. They're very good, but like I kind of got like really good vibes and like fun feelings with the boys just kind of hanging out and visiting this thing and having their observations. And you have like Joey and Garnt really respecting the Buddha thing, and Connor, it's not that he doesn't respect it, it's just more very clearly the other two knew what to do in this situation and Connor didn't. But like, and they don't make a deal out of that, they don't make it out of content, that's just something they show, right? And the showing of that I think was really interesting. And not that I took out anything away from it or anything, it was more like, this is a good vibe. I really liked it. It was a slow part of the video. I liked that it was a really nice. I don't know. I like that they kept it in this video. I think that there's probably an option where there's so much that they cut out because there's a Patreon only version of this, and they cut out a lot of the fun stuff, like them going on this slide and amusement park thing, and they cut a lot of that part out. But they kept this part in. I really liked that they kept that part in. I'm very happy they did. It was my favorite part of the video, I think. Yeah, it was really great. I think the boys have really good chemistry with each other. I think that's very professional with how much the edit and how much is being filmed. It was not just a impressive amount that's being compiled on the editing room floor from Mudan and his group, of course, but also just like the effort of the film crew and their producers, and of course like the three of them really making sure that you're filming certain stuff, that you get the shot from multiple angles, and then like nothing then that goes in that department goes wrong, everything's properly charged. I'm just thinking the logistics of this video is impressive, and professional. So really impressive, really good, well done, very good Trash Day special. I really liked it. I'd say I think the other ones are so challenge oriented. They're very stuffed with the challenge, that this one was felt more of a journey and experience. And I like that it was very unbroken and it's very much like, kind of like a Journey Across Japan almost. A Journey Across Japan at least is very broken up in installments very deliberately. And I mean, he has Chris has his own not agenda, I guess, but like aims, I suppose. This is very different. It has certain vibes of that. Like they've been on, obviously they have Wacky Weekend and, Connor's done Wacky Weekend, and then Joey's done multiple Journey Across Japans. So they have experience from those, I think, to really carry on to this Trash Day special. And of course, all props to Garnt as well. I think Garnt does a really good job being a constant, animated on-screen presence, really strong presence. Because I remember him talking about in Trash Taste that he, for a long time, was not really a on-camera person. So he's been able to really come out of his shell. And I think he does a great job here. Yeah, overall, I think this is a really great video. Really great special, really entertaining, professional. Really gonna say a lot about it. What can I say? It's really fun. Really good job. I'm gonna do a proper ending in this. Sorry, there was time skips in between. little differences in time discrepancy. Recording multiple things, and it's December 1st now. So all the videos that I wanted to talk about should be out. There was 2 videos that one of them I definitely wasn't going to recover because I don't want to touch that. I also just don't want to just don't want to expose myself to that. It's the Vice video. Forget it. I'm not touching that fucking. I just feel like there's other people who probably doing a better job covering it, and I also didn't want to watch the video through their perspective either. I just don't want to touch it. Period. I'm not interested. But then there's another one. The Mystery of Momo will be in the Criterion collection. I had it in my watch later, and dead ass, it got blocked worldwide by manually, 10 minutes before I was gonna watch it. Not even kidding. It was on my watch later. I click it. It's blocked. I go to her Twitter, and she's like, "Damn it!" And it was 10 minutes ago. that you posted that. And I'm like, no, which is okay. I wouldn't have been able to share it with you guys because it's like, I hate to talk about videos you can't watch. So it's probably a good thing, and not a good thing. It sucks that happened. I hope she is able to resolve it somehow. But it's a manual block by TMS. Don't know if that's gonna work. Oh, I was like, oof. You know, I get it. I feel for you. Hopefully it was released early enough, like a week or two ago. Like I think a week ago or so. Only had maybe, at least the screenshot that you shared was at 10K. But it'll do fine if you just, I think if you try to re-release it maybe. But maybe the block you can resolve it. I don't know. That's tough. But I would love to watch it once it comes out. The Mystery Mama will be on the Cartoon Collection. I liked her previous video. So yeah, we'll check that out. Hopefully if it comes out next month. And there's a certain other video coming out next month that's like, fuck. That I've yet to check out, but I'm looking forward to very, very much. Anyway, that was it for this month's AniTube Digest. Thank you very much for watching. You guys are great. You have a great month. Yo, peace.